your workbench. And again, I repeat that you only need one connection to connect to wherever you want. You're basically connecting to your own machine, right? You're basically connecting to the SQL server running on your machine, right? So that's what you have to connect to. So if you're using WAMP or XAMPP or you have the MySQL Community Edition, whatever you have, see that now a database server is running on your machine. That's the idea of starting your server. Once your database server is running, then you open up Workbench and connect to that database server, right? So use connection DreamHost if you want to connect to DreamHost, or use your local connection, whatever you've called it. So you only need one connection. That's all you need. You don't need 10 connections for 10 different classes, right? Once you have the connection, double click on it and your workbench should open up. Okay. Once the workbench opens up, if it is a script that you would like to open, an old script that you're working on, open the script, else we'll create a new script. Okay, so every time or every week we come to class, most probably we'll be working on a new script. So we'll always start a new one, but you should know how to open up an old one. So before I go on, as I was mentioning for students who've just come in, I'll kind of go through the in-class assignment 1 and tell you what the requirements were. So let me open up my script, and if you have any questions, of course you can clarify them. Right, so basically, if you remember, I'll refresh your memories. You were given the task of creating a database, a table therein, to save drink information, right? That's what the purpose was. And I had emphasized that I would like to see comments, of course, and 2, the fields that you choose for your table should be of the best fit. And I think I emphasized it quite a bit of times when you were doing your assignment. So that is one major part of your assignment. 25% of your assignment was basically, did you think of the right fields that should go into the table? So a database is nothing but a huge repository of data. A relational database is just one of the ways you can design and save your data and retrieve it. There are 2 other forms. You have hierarchical databases and you have network databases. This course is for relational databases, and the relational database we are using is the free open source called MySQL. Okay, so the requirement was to create a database and to use it, of course, and then from there create a table. And a table is basically a collection of records or rows for an entity, right? So you create a database, and in database you could have any number of related tables, and a table contains records that are related. So a table could be about students, a table could be about teachers, a table could be about non-teaching staff, and so on. So it's about an entity, one single entity, an entity, right? So one entity. So this was your job, and of course I haven't filled up the name, date, purpose because it will depend on what you're doing. It had to be commented well. I was asking for a minimum of your name, date, and purpose at the head, and the purpose would be to create a database and a table therein to store drink information, right? That's the purpose I'm looking for. So I'm not looking for assignment 1 for Anju or whatever, and I've kind of emphasized that too in class. So you see that your purpose is what your script does. Again, I've said, I've kind of started putting comments together. If you've done it separately, good. If you haven't, that's, of course, you will lose marks, but I need to see comments. So notice how I've said drop existing database if it exists, create a new database and use it, right? So again, line number 8, we wouldn't do it every day in a real world environment, but because you are running your scripts a number of times and I run it again, you can't create a database by the same name in the same server space. So since my server space is my local machine, I can't keep creating the same database. So I use line number 8 so that I can run the script over and over again. The if exists is important or recommended so that if it doesn't exist, it doesn't error out. So if exists says if it exists, remove it. If it doesn't, ignore it. Okay. But if you forget your if exists and the database does not exist, it will error out, and we don't want scripts to error out. If your script is not running, you're losing marks anyway because I'm not seeing anything. You know what I mean? Like the script isn't running, I don't have any output, so what am I marking you on? I can use a chunk of your chunk of your marks will go away if the script is not running. Then, of course, the create database command, again, you may not be creating a database every day of your in your work environment. It's not necessary. But the create database command says create a new database. So you're basically creating a kind of a space with a name, and the name of the database is dbdreams. You can follow any naming conventions that are allowed in MySQL. And the two naming conventions are either you use the camel case convention, and some students were struggling with what a camel case convention is. In the camel case convention, if you have one word, then you just start it with small. Right? So like this. If you have more than one word, then you have the option of saying something like, I could be calling it. So leaving the first word which starts with a small letter, all other words start with a capital letter. That's the camel case convention. Okay? And why? So that it's easy to read. If it was all in short lowercase, then it's kind of difficult to read where does one word stop and where does the other begin. So we are not making guesses here. The Pascal naming convention, this is camel case. Right? The Pascal naming convention, every word starts with a capital letter. This is called Pascal naming convention. We use it in Java for naming classes. It's not, we don't use it in MySQL, right? In SQL. And the third way is basically that you could use all lowercase, but use an underscore to differentiate words. Again, the whole purpose is to read, for readability, right? For readability. So if I make it all small and I don't have the underscore, it's kind of tough to find. Sometimes it is. What does it? What do you want to say? But if there is an underscore, we'll always kind of give a break. We'll say Brinks database. Here, because it starts with a capital, I know that I have to stop at Brinks database and say same here, right? So this is your convention. Doesn't have a name, but what it is. You can use either this one or this one in your scripts. Anyone will do, but consistently one of them throughout your script. The other option is I've used the word DB in front of my database. You don't have to. And then I think I use TBL. No, I don't. But you could use TBL for in front of tables. But again, be consistent. So if you want to use TBL before the table name, be consistent throughout. The DB drinks, I haven't used either of them, but because DB is kind of, it's separate word. We all know what DB means. I've used it. But you don't have to. But whatever you're doing, be consistent in your script. So I'm seeing all kind of stuff, kind of no conventions followed. So if there are no conventions, keep in mind, always conventions will have some marks attached to it. So these three statements, any doubts in lines number 8, 9, and 10? You cannot work with a database till you use it. There is a way you could qualify your tables everywhere, but this is the easiest. Just say use, right? Like import in Java. So once you say import, you can use all classes in it. Once you say use, you can use all tables in it, in that database. So use can be replaced. I'll show you how it can be replaced, but it's kind of always there. But unless you use a database, you cannot do anything with it. Okay? So those are the first three statements. Line number 13 is just to ensure that not null is enforced. Maybe you don't have this problem, but if you've downloaded XAMPP, XAMPP version wasn't working without this. So WAMP works fine, but XAMPP was causing problems. XAMPP, the not null, I don't know. Is that what happened in you? But the other section, all students who had XAMPP on their machine, on their Windows machines, not on their Mac machines, on their Windows machines were having this problem. Their not null wouldn't enforce. That means it wouldn't work. It didn't mean anything. You could add a field without a value, a not null field. So kind of keep this in mind that the set command, there are many set commands in MySQL. The set commands allow you to create an environment in which you want to run your script. And since you don't know what the environment will be on the server and you cannot, control it, it's not your personal machine, the best way is to create your correct environment in your script. So if I run this on DreamHost, I don't know whether it will work or not. I mean, have they enforced not null or not? I'm not sure. Or if I work on a server that I have no idea of, this will always keep it safe. So I'm safe. I'm saying, please ensure that the not null is enforced. That means whenever I use not null, then it is enforced in the sense that I cannot add a field without giving it a value. And if this is not set, it will just ignore your insert statement. If you haven't provided a value, it will let it go. You won't see an error. So line number 13 is not working for XAMPP that has been installed on Windows machines. Definitely not. The other section, at least 10 students had it and it wouldn't work. So they have to have it. Do you need to have it? If your script is running, I don't know, unless I've asked, it's okay. But I just make it a habit of putting it so that it doesn't matter. Is Anju running it? Am I running it on DreamHost? Is my neighbor running it? Doesn't matter. Just put it. It's one line. You will learn more set statements and you understand the use of set statements so that you know how to do things, right? So always see that your environment, your script is standalone. Doesn't depend upon the settings on the server, and you're safe. Okay, then you're safe. Now I had given you some fields. Now line number 16, you may or may not put it. Really doesn't matter because I'm dropping my database at line number 8. But if you're working on DreamHost, you will require it because you cannot drop a database or create a database on DreamHost. So this is just for your information again. It will work without it. It will work without it on local machines because drop database drops tables anyway. The whole database is gone. But again, a couple of students work on DreamHost in my other section. So I've put it here so that they can see it. They need it. We don't need it. On local environment, you don't need it at all. On DreamHost, definitely, because you cannot do 8 and 9. You have to drop a table if you want to run your script over and over again. Now comes the main table in the sense of the data types that would work the best, right? Now, a few of you, I mean, I don't know. It was while you were doing it, I did go around and I helped out students, but let's kind of discuss it together. The drink name was a varchar field, right? Now you don't have to count the biggest drink name. Kind of look at the tape. Sometimes you may not even have the data, right? Here you had the data. Sometimes you may not even have the data. So make an educated guess as to how much do I need. So names can usually go from, like if it's a person's name, I would go 40 or 50. We had the table. I could see drink names and I didn't see very long names. The longest I think was kiss on the lips and it was 16 if you had to count it. But I'm not looking for specifically 16. If you're writing 16, I'm sure you've kind of counted it, right? Which is not what you have to do. In trillions of records, you're not going to count what is the size of my field. So look at, if you have data, good. If you don't have data, make an educated guess. Okay. So I went with 20 because I had data. I knew that it was not too big and I said 20 would be a safe figure. And you know what? You can always run the script. If you have an error, it says, oh, it's not enough. Increase it. You know what I mean? Like increase it. Then you have an idea. The cost, remember, monetary values should always be decimal. Always. Your monetary values kind of stick to decimal. So you can write dec, you can write decimal, or you can write numeric. These are the options two options in MySQL for defining exact floating values, exact real values. Where you want precision, go with these two. So you could say dec or you could say decimal. And I always need two places after decimal in cost, always, right? Because remember, whatever it is, irrespective of the currency you are using, your after decimal always needs 2. The 4 is the total. So I've kind of said I need 2 after the decimal, I need 2 before the decimal. Even 3, 2 was enough from the data. But I said no drink will be more than $100. $99.99 was good enough. So if I'm saying 3, 2, I'm okay. If I'm saying 4, 2, I'm okay. I wouldn't like to see a 5, 2. You're kind of saying drinks will be $999 per drink. Kind of, I mean, far-fetched from the data we had. But of course, I don't want to see something like 8, 2, 10, 2. Doesn't make sense at all. Okay. So 3, 4, 5, I'm okay. Doesn't matter. I went with 4 because I gave it a little bit of padding. And that's all. I kind of said, oh, I don't see anything. There was nothing more than $10 actually. There was nothing more than $10. So even if it was $99, this would take care. So I went with 4 just for a little padding, nothing else. Now with carbs, many of you have gone dec. But a better type would be either float or double. The difference between the two. Dec is a very big field. I think it almost takes 16 bytes if I can remember. Right? It's a big field and it's for exact values. Now with carbs, you're okay even with approximate values. Like you're not looking for precision, like precision with 16 places after decimal. That's too much. You know what I mean? Like that precision is not required in carbs. So dec is not bad, but float definitely is better. So float, or you have 2 options for non-exact, float and double. Float is smaller, 4 bytes, double is bigger, 8 bytes. Again, I chose float because my carbs were small. There was nothing more than 17 or 89. That's all I had. So from float and double, please choose float. Double is again big. So always see what you need. And float is the smallest, non-exact in MySQL. So I went with the float. There is a float 4 also that I see now. So go with float 4.
Yeah, but does it take more memory? Like,
Float?
Yeah.
No, float is the smallest one. In real numbers, float is the smallest one. Double takes more memory.
Yeah, double is more than just small.
Yeah, so we'll go with the smallest one we need, okay? Because if you look at your data, they were just very small values.
Yeah, but you don't know, like, in the future, maybe you have another.
Yeah, but exactly what I'm saying, make an educated guess. You're talking about carbs in a drink. You know what I mean? Like carbs in a drink. We're not talking about big figures. We're not talking about distance between, say, Earth and the moon, something like that. If you go, I mean, think. You will think, then there is no end to it. You have to make educated guesses. So again, I went a little more. Instead of going 3,1, I went 4,1. Again, you may not have data, but you will always have an idea of the data that will be stored, irrespective of what application you're creating. Your client will tell you, this is my range. So you'll always have an idea. Always, okay? So again, I wouldn't go 8,1. I wouldn't go double. Double was too high a value. We didn't need it. But I was seeing if you could differentiate, and I did point it out to many students in class, whether you could differentiate between exact values and non-exact real values. So keep in mind price, cost, anything that's money, go with decimal or numeric. Anything that's not money, go with float or double, depending upon how much you want. I've just noticed float 4 is also coming up. Float 4 will be smaller than float, that means. Or maybe that's the default. Float also, I think float takes 4 bytes if I'm not mistaken. So float 4 and float may mean the same. You can look up what's the difference, right? And that's what I was looking for, float or a double. I wasn't looking for dec. Anyway, I mean, so that's how you'll kind of understand or see what you need. The color was easy. Color was again a varchar, right? Again, now I don't want to see varchar 50 for a color. Doesn't make sense. So 10, 15, I mean, we know about colors. We know what colors are, right? We know what they are. So that's why I've said you will always have an idea of what type of data and what range of data is going into a table. So I went with varchar 10 and it worked. If it was smaller, I would go with 15. I usually go kind of a little more. I don't go, oh, 10 isn't working, I'll make it 30. And you'll know if you try to give it something small and you try to put a bigger value in it, you will get an error and you will say, oh, that's what the problem is. You have to learn to read errors. I'll show you, I'll make errors and show you. Ice had a value y or n in it. That's all that was allowed, right? Nothing else. So it was Boolean, but there is no Boolean type in MySQL. There's no true false. You can use the constants true and false, but there is no Boolean data type. You could use a bit if you like, if you had a 0 or a 1, but we had y and n, right? So with y and 1, there are two options. I did see enumerated. ENUM stands for enumerated. What enumerated is saying, it's saying which values can go into this field, either a y or an n, or a small y or a capital N. All will work. If I'm not mistaken, it's not case sensitive. I can double check. Otherwise, we'll add the small y and the small n. If you now try to put anything else but a y or an n, it will blow up. Okay, that's what it does. So enumerated, some of you did. I noticed some of you were doing it. But if you gave a char 1, I'm fine with it. Right? Character 1 is fine. For your first attempt, character 1 is not bad at all. But you're thinking, we don't need a varchar 10. We don't need a varchar 1 even. Even varchar 1 doesn't make sense. Char 1 makes sense. You're putting y or n in it. That's all. So again, ice, yes or no. You'll say, oh, I don't know whether they'll put a y or an n or a yes or no. Go char 3. You know what I mean? Go char 3. That's up to you. But you had data, so there was a y or an n. So enumerated data type, if some of you used it, good. If you didn't, at least now you have another one. So Google enumerated data type in MySQL, and enumerated is like an enumerated in any other programming language. Enumerates, they're constants kind of. And you're saying the only value I'll allow, oh, it does work. Since I put a small y and it works, that means small y, small n are working. I've already tested the script. The script should run. Right, the script should run. So small y and small n are allowed, but you know what? You can always restrict it to capital Y by capital N. You have to just look up what set statement do I need or what is my collating sequence. You can do that. It's not a big deal at all. And then, so ice enumerated yn, very good. You thought about it, but if you didn't, from other programming experience, you didn't think about it and you went character 1 or char 1, that's fine too. Perfectly fine. right? There's no problem in it at all. But now you know about enumerated data type, so you can use it. Okay. And then lastly were calories. And notice how I have an unsigned with cost and an unsigned with carb. These values can never be negative. And I said I need best fit. And the advantage of going unsigned is you get more range. So instead, suppose you were saving from -n to n, now you can save from 0 to almost twice the n. So you get a better range, you get a bigger range. So in float, you can even accommodate bigger numbers now. Even if you don't go double, go float and go unsigned with it. And you're okay, you'll get a bigger range. And you'll say, how do I know what the ranges are? Look up. It will tell you in manual, you can store a number from this to this in a float. It will tell you. So all information is available. You have to think about it. So I went tiny int because the maximum, I think the value I had in calories was 171, if I remember, right? Now tiny int can only save from -127 to 128. That's its range. Integers are easy, so I remember them by heart, right? Opposite, sorry. Integers are easy, they have a fixed formula, so they're not tough to remember. Tiny ints, that's the range for a tiny int. So 171 cannot be accommodated in that. So if you went small int, I'm okay with it. But you know what a better one would be? Add unsigned to it. And when you go unsigned, the range goes from 0 to 255. It almost doubles up because you've taken away the sign bit, now becomes a part of the number. So you had 8 bits first, of which one was reserved for the sign. You only had 7 boxes to fill. Now you have all 8 boxes. So definitely your value will increase, all ones. So if you went tiny int, it wouldn't work because I had a value of 171. So maybe you changed it to small int, but I'm looking for unsigned also. So if your description matches mine, you're not going to lose any marks. But if it doesn't, if you got unsigned, you went with, float, carbs, I'll let go this time. But at least if you've thought about it, maybe I'll give good bonus marks. I'll kind of go that route. I'll see the scripts. I have to see the scripts. I haven't gone through it. But that was one of the main parts of your assignment. The types, right? The types was important. And then, of course, the insertion was no big deal at all. You only had to give in values, right? You only had to give in values. So, of course, this was not given. I added it afterwards to do something. But this is something that you will need afterwards. I was trying something out. But that's your script. That's all I required from you. So you could have maximum, you could lose. Of course, if the script doesn't run, I don't see output. I have no clue what's going on, right? So if something doesn't run and I don't see anything, then you can kind of think that I don't get marks, because if I don't see anything, I don't know whether it is running. But again, I'll be lenient in this one. If at least I see something, oh, there is a drop database command, there is a create command and so on, I'll give you partial marks for it, even if your script doesn't run, right? Which I hope it's not for anybody, but that's what it is. So that's what I was looking for. Those were my requirements, right? And again, unsigned, maybe you forgot. So you won't, as it lose a lot of marks, but every field has a mark. Did you define your drink name, your cost, your carbs, your color, your ice and calories properly? So every field will have a mark. That's how it's kind of, so almost 25% of your script is that, because that was what we did in this one. And of course you had create database and drop and create a table and insert. You'll get marks for everything. Anything and everything you do, you'll always have marks. So this is my feedback to you. I'm not going to give my feedback on any of the, when I return your marks. You can keep this. You'll have this from me actually in your second assignment. The second assignment is based on the first one. So I will give you this script, right? And you can use it or keep it in mind. So you've kind of seen float, decimal, and enumerated could be something we didn't do last week, right? We haven't, and we did varchars. Though tiny int was mentioned, we did varchars. So that's what it is. Okay, so this script will come to you. You'll use it in your second assignment, so it will come to you. And of course, I'm not looking for the select statement, but unless you put statement number 45, how will you know that your script runs? You know what I mean? Was data put into it? How do you know? Was the table created? Yes, maybe the table was created, but maybe it didn't run. Maybe the data wasn't inserted. So you had to do everything, create a database, create a table, and populate it with data. So always put a select statement at the end so that you can see your data. Right? And I'll show you how things will not work. For example, for whatever reason, if I forget unsigned, in my calories. And notice there is a calorie of 171. The other thing that was clearly mentioned in the assignment was all varchar data or character data or text data comes in quotes and numeric data comes without quotes. Don't put your numeric data in quotes. MySQL will ignore it, but that's not how you do it. Right? So go right. So what have I done now? I've kind of changed my tiny int unsigned to tiny int, and the 171 should give me an error. This record should give me an error. Right? So try. Now run this script again. And I'll have an error. And your job is to read the errors. So bring your mouse over it and see how it says out of range value for column calories at row 5. Row 5 means this is what you were adding. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is your row 5. You're trying to insert data. And it kind of it tells you it's at row 5 and it's in the calories field. So it's quite helpful. So see what it says. It says there is something out of range value in here. This, I cannot accommodate it in a tiny int. And that's right, you cannot. The range is still 127. So a couple of you I saw changing it from tiny int to small int. I did. Yeah, it will work, but it's not 100% correct. I was looking for best fit. Now if I make it unsigned, of course it will start working. And it will work. Now for whatever reason, let me change my drink name from 20, which I know is more than enough, just for the heck of it, to say 15. So you kind of made a guess. Oh, 15 looks good enough. 15 should be good for a drink name. Try it again. And you should have an error. See what it says. It says data too long for the column drink name at row 5 again. By chance, row 5 is kind of coming up because that has the biggest name, I think. There it is, kiss on the lips. So I'm not going to count. I said 15 is something that looks good enough, but 15 didn't work. So I'll kind of go on 20, roughly. Like usually you go by 2s or 5s. Like that's what we usually do, right? That's how we increase. Don't start going, oh, I'll increase it to 16. Doesn't work. I'll go on to 17. Doesn't work. I'll go. Don't make these odd figures of uneven numbers. You know what I mean? Kind of go 5s. It's not a big deal, but don't go 20 more. So if 15 is not working, give 20 a run. And if it works, you're good. You'll say, no, I have to be really precise. Then of course, if you know what is your maximum limit, like maximum, then go 16 and it will work. It's one shot. I know it is 60. So if you give 15, you don't have to count. Make an educated guess. So 15 is not working. 16 will work. Kiss on the lips is 16. But I didn't bother. I just said, okay, if 15 isn't working, let me give a shot for 20. And 20 works. Why would I make it 25 or 30 or 35 or 50? Why would I do that? Right? So this is how you can kind of check. So if you try to give something wrong here in your cost, you go 2, 2 or something, you will see that your data will be incorrect. So that's how you you can test your script. What is a good figure, right? So that was the expectation. So I think this works now. Oh no, because it is highlighted. See that nothing is highlighted when you run the script. My 4 was highlighted. And don't say, oh, it runs, my job is done. Double check that your data is right. Double check, oh, everything looks right. Right? Just double check. Yeah, I see 1 place after decimal in carbs. Yes, I see 2 places after decimal in cost. The calories is an int. Some of you were making your carbs and cost integers. Absolutely wrong. You lose all that data. Right? It's wrong. You'll say, oh, it runs, I'm fine. No, your values are wrong. You haven't put the right data. And I saw a couple of you also doing this. You didn't have the 1 after it. What do you think will happen? Float 4 will have no decimal points. It's as good as an int now. When you say I don't need anything after decimal point, that's what it is. So it will work. There's nothing wrong in it. It will work. But look at the data. Oh, carbs is still coming up with 1. It's MySQL behaving then some different way. It should not show you anything. It should not show you anything. Or maybe decimal doesn't do. Okay, let's try that. Maybe float behaves a little differently. So you just have to double check. Let's see. Or it could be just MySQL saying, you know what, I don't care. But I think I tested it on the students and it wouldn't work. Yeah, okay. So it's not working with DEC, it's working with float. So again, there could be a difference. You know what I mean? Like you have to see what works and what doesn't work. So I must have seen somebody doing the cost as a DEC. So the person was writing DEC 4, saying, oh, it's a decimal number with 4, but didn't say how many places after decimal. So it said, oh, you don't want anything after decimal, so that the values are gone. So it's incorrect. The values and the cost are incorrect. So the script runs, but the data is wrong. Right? So if the data is wrong, if your information is wrong, you will again lose marks. So be careful about these small things, right? So I don't know, float shouldn't behave any different from it. I don't know why it's behaving differently. Let me give it one more try. I'm kind of intrigued. I mean, they shouldn't do the same kind of, or maybe because one is exact and one is approximate. Who knows? Yeah, carbs, the float is behaving differently. It's still showing me one place after decimal. Right? So maybe that person had used decimal. And again, nobody is going to teach you this over and over again in different courses where you are using a database at the back end. This is your foundation. You have to know how to create tables with the right type and size of fields. So what type do I need? And then after the type, you may also be concerned with the size. Varchar has a size, char has a size, floats have size, decimals have size. And some of you were doing this because I think you saw it in the manual. This is irrelevant. Many of you did it. Many of you. And I did point out. The 3 is not required with tiny int or an int or anything. These numbers have no use in integers. Have it. It's for display purposes. When you display it, you are saying give me a size of 3. And even that wasn't working in MySQL. If it says 10, give me a size of 10. So this is only for displaying purposes in tiny int. In tiny int and int. I'm not saying everywhere, in tiny int. But many of you did this. Maybe you picked up an example from MySQL. So I could go 10, but I didn't see any changes in my size. I didn't. So I don't know if it's just the MySQL that we have. See, I don't see any difference. Or maybe that's how it's coming here in when you basically see it or you print it, it looks different. Because numbers are left justified, I can make out. I don't see a difference between 3 and a 10. So these are not important. The number with the tiny int, these are only for display purposes. Please keep in mind, not for storage purposes. Storage is different. Everything else is storage. Varchar 10, 20 says, give me 20 bytes to save my drink name. So they're all storage. But with tiny int and int, it's for display purposes. Right? And that's not important for us. That's not important for us. Okay? Any questions on this script? Anything that still is not clear in your mind? Are we all okay? Good. So this is my feedback for a in-class assignment 1. I'll find some time to mark it and put your marks up. Okay. Very quickly, I already have 3 assignments. Yes, Shane.
Are we supposed to submit the file or anything? Because I know you went around and looked at it.
Oh, of course, files have always to be submitted. Because I can't remember, like, it hadn't even finished, people hadn't even finished. It's in the assignment, it should be said, please submit it through Blackboard. It should say it. I'm definite it says it. I'm almost positive, but I'll kind of double check. The document you got was this one, right? It says, call me over so that I can see the script running, rename the script and submit it via this link on Blackboard. So if I don't have it, then it's gone. You know what I mean? I can't remember. I'm not writing anything. My purpose of coming and seeing it was to guide you that way. I said I would come and help you out, and that's what I was doing. And the other thing is, I see that you have completed it. If you can't even write a create database command and then you give me the script at the end of the class, all 100% right, something is fishy. That's another thing. I'm kind of keeping my eyes. I'm trying to see that you learn your stuff. And since we are in a different environment, this is not your work environment. This is your education environment, and your marks are your marks, not your friend's marks. And I'm strict about it. That's how it is, right? Otherwise, what's the sense? And I want each one of you to be perfect in what you do. Whatever you learn, doesn't matter. So that when you go out tomorrow in the working world, you are sure what you know, if you really want to work in this field. Right? So it's all for you, but again, it's how you take it. Okay, having said that, now we'll start our next script. Okay, so this is your in-class 1. And as I said, I'll run the script, I'll check the data. So if everything looks right there, then my next job is just to see this. And depending upon it's 90% correct, it's 80% correct, I'll kind of go with it. Okay. Okay, so that's for your script 1. So today's job, we'll start a new script, and again for a few classes, maybe another week or so, we will do everything from scratch. Scratch means we'll create the database, we'll create the table, we'll talk about the types of the field and so on. After that, I'll assume you can do this. So I'll give you part script and we'll do the rest of the part. But again, since this is your second week, third, but working on a script as a second week, we'll again write a script from scratch. Okay. So today's, we are trying to create a script in which we are going to keep information about donuts, right? An easy one. So I'm trying to give you something that you have seen or heard or at least are aware of, instead of going, oh, I don't even know what will go in that data. Okay, so you have an idea. You all eat donuts. If not, at least you see them. You all know that they can't, each donut cannot be more than maybe $10 each, kind of, you know what I mean? Calories, we have a rough idea now, but if you kind of are a Timmy's customer, which most of you are, you'll see they have started mentioning calories. So you see 400, 450. So again, I have an idea. Okay, so that's how you kind of think about it. You would say you have to have an idea of what kind of data you are keeping. Okay, so start a new script, and to start a new script, you will add a tab. And as I said, I would always like to see at the beginning your name, the date, and the purpose of the script. Your name. So it's May 24th today. And the purpose of this script, sometimes you may know it, sometimes you may not, and you can fill it in afterwards also when you are done, right? It's not that you have to put it first. Once you are done, you say, oh, this is what I did in this script. So in this one, I'm going to create a database and a table therein to save donut information or information about donuts, right? Donuts. That's what we will do. But further in this script, we will also learn how to select data in this table, right? Or query it, as it is called. Okay, so select is the verb or the SQL statement we'll use. And you also say query it. You're querying, you're asking questions out of it. We'll also learn to select. Again, data means it could be rows, it could be columns, and so on, depending upon what your requirement is. You could always display it, or you could always save it in another table. Here we are learning how to display it. We're just displaying it. But when you select data, you could even save it in temporary tables. New tables can be created out of old tables. Okay, but here we are only displaying it on this. Okay, so that's what the purpose is. Again, if there are any changes, we'll make it. So you can start doing this. You can drop the database if it exists. So you can kind of start making your composite kind of comments. Right. So again, anybody who's not working on local environment will not be able to do what I'm doing right here. So I'm going to drop database. Again, please see that you're consistent in the use of your capital letters if you want. If you want to go all smaller case, your script, you're most welcome to do it. It's absolutely up to you. It's just my habit, though it's a tough habit, caps lock on, off, and so on. My commands are always in uppercase. They just stand out, they're easy to read. There is no restriction for you, but be consistent. If you want to go uppercase for your commands, your SQL commands, go with it. If you want to go small, it's entirely up to you. But don't make a mess of it. So if exists, and then comes the name of your database. Follow whatever you like. Keep your. If I don't want to use DB, I can just go donuts. The use of using DB is that I could use the same name for my database and then the same name for my table, because usually it helps me, right? But again, it's up to you. So if you want to go DB donuts, up to you. If you want to go DB without DB, it's up to you. So my aim, I usually do it so that I don't have to think of a different name.
So how in Java we use for a class name, right? We use a capital letter.
Pascal. Right. Class names in Java are Pascal convention.
So can we use that
You don't have it in SQL. Every language has its own conventions. Yeah, so stick to the conventions. Yeah, you have these two options in SQL. These two are the common conventions, the two conventions. Stick to it, right? Stick to it, because in the long run, you'll have to work with others, right? So conventions help you to understand what the other person is doing. Like in Java, if you know the conventions, anytime you see anything, you know it's a method name or a variable name or a class name. So you can make educated guesses. That's why conventions are created. So we'll stick to these two because that's what I've seen. But if you go and see that people are using Pascal naming conventions and things have changed, bring it to my notice and use it. Doesn't matter. This is my awareness. Okay. As I said, if you do, that's perfectly fine. I've seen people using DB and then they put an underscore too. That's fine too. That's another convention. You put an underscore just because it's easy to read, and some people won't. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do. Okay. Be consistent. To create a database, we go create database, and then we give the name of the. I mean, you won't be dropping a different one and creating a different one. The whole purpose of dropping is that you're going to create the same one. So 9 and 10 won't work on DreamHost. You cannot create a new database on DreamHost. You only have one, GC whatever. So if you can create, you cannot drop. And you cannot drop the one that you have. So if an assignment wants you to drop or create one, and if the script doesn't run, so 9 will be needed because I'll be running the script again. You forgot it, the script doesn't run, you'll lose some marks for sure. Because your script didn't run. I had to put in a statement to make it run. If you're working on DreamHost, perfectly fine. You work on DreamHost, but before you submit it to me, see that you add those statements for me. I don't want to see use GC 110012. I can't run the script at all. Okay. The next job, to create a table. And again, the drop table is not required for us at all. I'll kind of keep it here so that you have it, but you don't need it because we are dropping the whole database. The whole thing is going. Right. So again, you can put your comments. But we don't need it. Absolutely, we don't need it. DreamHost, you will need it. Right? So again, the command for dropping a table is drop table. Again, if exists, will avoid any errors. If the table doesn't exist, this statement, if you don't write if exists, it will give you an error. You're trying to drop a table that does not exist. So this is a safe way. It says drop table if it exists. If it doesn't exist, you'll see a warning, but warnings are okay. Right? You'll have something with a yellow triangle. Okay. And again, I'll kind of go TBL. You can go TBL underscore. You can go this. And that way I can use the same name again. Of course, I won't write DB with it. That's what kind of helps. Then you don't have to bother a lot. But again, whatever you like. The next command, how do you create a table? Create table. Thank you. Then comes the name of the table. And then comes the definitions of the fields and their types in the table. So go round bracket, kind of always make it a whole thing so that you don't forget things and you won't forget. Try to indent your code because it is easy to read, right? Try to indent your code because it is readability is a big thing in programming because it makes life a little easy. Okay, now we'll just talk about it. I'll tell you what fields I would like you to put, but in a donut table, what do you think should go?
Different kinds of donuts.
Okay, so that's a type. There is a name. Every donut has a name. Can't work without a name, right? Now, donuts usually don't have an ID. I mean, if Tim's giving some donuts, it won't name two donuts the same. Never. Otherwise, doesn't make sense. So donut name can act as a field that is unique and can identify each record. For your information, remember we call this field a primary key. We call it a primary key. Every table in a database has to have a primary key. It's almost a must. Not almost, it is a must. That's your first design principle when you create a table. So we'll start doing that once we talk more about normalization, but it's not a tough thing at all. I can show you how to do it. But always in a table, look for a field. If a field doesn't work, you could have a group of fields, like more than one field as a composite field. But there has to be a field in the table or a group of fields in the table that uniquely identifies every record. Because if you cannot identify something, how will you differentiate between two things? Identification is required. to differentiate between two students who have the same name, I have to have something, right? So since donut name are usually unique, at least in one shop, and we're talking about a shop, right? You're creating an application for Timmy's, or you're creating an application for Donut Place or whatever, the Krispy Kreme donuts, wherever, their donut names will be unique. So I will need a field called donut name. Again, you don't have to go donut underscore name, but if some of you remember from last week, name is a reserved word. If you only give it name, it will appear in blue, and that tells you that it is a reserved word. Now, MySQL is really a lazy one. You can put your numeric data in quotes and it works. You can use a reserved word and it works. I don't want you to get into that careless habit, right? You do not use reserved words as your variables, your identifier names. Don't do it. You don't have to. It's not a tough thing. You can always change name to donut name, student name, whatever name. So don't do it. Okay. So donut name. What would be the right type for a donut name? Varchar. Perfect. Try to answer so that if there is anything you don't understand, you can at least clarify. So donut name, Varchar what?
No, 20.
20 is good enough, right? I'm thinking Timmy's, I think it's good. You can go 30, but 100 doesn't make sense, right? 100 doesn't make sense. So Varchar 20, 30 is okay. Something like that should be good enough. You can choose whatever. And we'll kind of try to go not null because we are saying that this is my primary, like this is something with which I'll identify a donut. You don't go and you always say the donut name, right? If you want information about that donut, that's how it will be retrieved from the database. How many calories does it have? What is its cost? So there has to be an identifying field. And we are saying that donut name will be the identifying field, right? And when I say not null, you have to provide a value for it. A primary key is a field that cannot be null and has to be unique, right? So the uniqueness is not coming here. I could have two records with the same donut name. I haven't done, it has to be unique. I could have same apple fritter. And I don't want that because it's not possible. And an easy way of saying that I don't want that, just so that you know, and it's not a big deal, you can just say primary key here. And you don't even have to say not null. You can just go primary key. And I'll kind of put this in comments because it's not required. But some people still say not null with it. It's not required now. By default, a primary key is null, not null, and unique. The unique part is added to it. Now you cannot have two records with the same donut name. You cannot. As soon as you say primary key. This is one way of saying it. You could add it as a separate statement also. Primary key donut name. You can add it as a separate statement. But that's not too tough to understand. So this is not null and unique for your information. Right? Again, some relational database languages will have the reserved word unique, and you'll have to kind of read to see, oh, what has it and what doesn't. Does MySQL have unique? And I could have said not null, comma unique, or it doesn't have it, and so on. That is different. But that's unique just means, as the English word unique means, the value has to be unique in the table. So every donut name, there can be no duplicates on this field. And primary key does that job for you. And such a table that has a primary key is called a table in its first normal form. Basic normalization rule. Every table must have a primary key. Right? And you say, what if I can't think of anything? There is no field. Then you can always create automatic ones. We'll learn that. So for here, it's okay. But for when we come, we'll do it. Okay, so I heard something called type, which is, of course, again, I wasn't aware of it till I kind of wrote this script that they were types. For me, they were okay. Like I never thought about it, but types, there could be fritters and there could be, there were other things also. A couple of them, I forget now. Yeah, there were a few types. So I had to see what the type was. So crawler, right? There was a ring. So there are types, okay? So now type, Varchar 10 should be okay, right? You could go 15, like it's not a big deal. But don't go 100. And again, if you want some field to have, if you want some field to have a particular extra attributes, like I've said primary key, all you do is you kind of go not null, if that's what you want. If you don't want it, that's okay. You don't have to have every field. But fields that you think need a value, you just add not null to it. Remember we did not null and default last week. What else about a donut would you like to save in a database?
Cost.
Cost, perfect, right? We need a cost. You could go donut cost if you like to be consistent, or you could just say cost, or you could say price, whatever, really doesn't matter. And don't be lazy, please, because you can always get help to autocomplete. You don't have to say donut, donut, donut with everything. With name, I did it because name was a reserved word. Type you could have said without donut, doesn't require it. I mean, it's not a big deal. And you could have just said cost, whatever works for you, okay? Now cost, what type of field is cost? Decimal, right? And what do you think would be a good, you know, figure for it? Total space. So 2 after decimal, we all know. We all know 2 after decimal for cost.
The first number would be 3, then after the comma, the second number would be 2.
Yeah, 3 is good enough. 3 says any donut is at a maximum price of $9.99. With 1 place before decimal, I could go $9.99. If you think that's a little less, maybe, I don't know. I mean, we know about Timmy's, but maybe specialized places is expensive. So let's go 4, 2. Right? So as I said, specialized places, it could be expensive. I'm sure they would be. Right? So go 4, 2. No sense going 8, 2 for a donut. You know what I mean? It isn't a TV. So you don't need to. And then we'll again, you decide. I mean, you don't have to say not null with every field, but this is again your client telling you that I need the cost for every donut to be saved in a database. Maybe when the receipts are being made, when the customer is asked to pay, they're retrieving this information from the database. Where else? Right? Nobody's inputting the cost every time you go and buy a donut. They're retrieving the cost from a database. Now, if you would like to, suppose you don't want to enter some of your donuts are priced, let's say $2, and the others have different prices. So you can put a default and say default is $2 or $1 or whatever. So you can just say default 2, right? And then put a comma. So what does default 2 say? Default says that if you do not enter a price, so not null says you have to enter it. But default says if you do not enter a cost or a price, I'll make it 2. So it's kind of contradictory. One saying you have to enter it, the other saying default, but they're not contradictory in that terms. It's just a little bit of, you know, if you're just giving a levi saying, oh, if you don't enter it, I'll make it 2. Assuming that 2 is kind of your lowest price and that will go with some. But again, you don't have to. Then I have, though you don't need it because I wanted to show you something else, I've added customer rating to it. How do customers rate this? Helpful for a shop because if the rating is high, they make more of it. If the rating is less, they make less of it. You know what I mean? And of course, every shop knows that I can sell more of these, or these sell more and these sell less. And that's how inventory is kind of created. Now with customer rating, usually your values will be of a certain type. Ratings don't go, you could make it an int, you could make it a tiny int, unsigned tiny int, but again, ratings usually go 1 to 10, 1 to 5, like, you know what I mean? Or it could be something like, it could be full words, good, poor, average, something, it could be words also. So instead of making it a varchar or a char or a tiny int, don't go int, doesn't make sense. If you want to go 1 to 10, you could make it a tiny int, but again, it could be better if you could restrict the values. And you just saw in the example I did, I'm going to restrict my values and I'm going to restrict it with enum. Right? Now the requirement of enum is that enum values have to be put in quotes. Right? Even if they are numbers, they have to be put in quotes. So though it is 1, 2, 3, 4 till 9 or 10 or 5, whatever you want to do, you have to put them in quotes. Syntax, that's it. That's all it is. It's just a requirement. So I'll go till 5. And again, the blanks are not necessary. It just is easier to read. So you could go tiny int unsigned if you like. I'm going enum because it makes more sense to me. Even a tiny int unsigned goes from 0 to 255. So a user could enter 120. And if I'm selecting records based on some values, show me all donuts that have a customer rating of 5. And you've entered 101 into it, of course it won't show up. You could say, oh, greater than 5 will take care of it. Like, if you can make it better, why not make it better? So you've kind of restricted, you've said these are the only 5 values that can go into this field called customer rating. So tiny int unsigned is not wrong, but enumerated is the best. Right? So again, I'm always looking for you to be efficient and do it the best. That's what you have to keep in mind. Program well. Okay. So I'll kind of, if you want, I can comment it, but I don't think we should say tiny int unsigned here. It doesn't make sense at all. So we'll go with enum. Right? And again, there is no big deal at all. If you want to look for what it is, and I'm kind of relating it to your, as I said, I'm trying to relate it to your, you've seen it in, hopefully in Java, oops. You've seen it in Java too, but if you haven't, every language has enumerated constants. They're usually constants, but in Java, for example, you could even go, you can create classes. So if I go this and I go to the enumerated type, and there it is. And enum is a string object, and that's why they have to go in quotes, right? It is a string object. You can use either single quotes or double quotes. Chosen from a list of permitted values that are enumerated explicitly in the column specification at table creation time. Okay. It has these advantages. Of course, it restricts your value. Compact data storage in situations where a column has a limited set of possible values. So you're giving it just enough storage that it requires, and you're also restricting it. The strings you specify as input values are automatically encoded as numbers. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about encoding. Even if you're using numbers, they have to be strings. Just keep that in mind. Readable queries and output. And the other thing about enumerated constants is readability. We've already talked about readability of constants in all languages, right? Even in Java, I said, if I see a value 0.13, it doesn't make sense. But if you've called it tax rate, it makes sense to me, right? So that's for readability. So that's another use. Readable queries and output. The numbers are translated back to the corresponding strings in query results. So encoding wise, it kind of saves those constants as 0, 1, 2, 3. We are not concerned with it. We can use strings. So you could have gone fair, excellent, poor, and whatever. And then when you write a query, it makes sense. Oh, show me the donuts in which the customer rating is excellent. That makes more sense than saying, show me the donuts in which customer rating is greater than 5. But when I say excellent, oh, it says, oh, you're looking for customer rating excellent. So readability improves, right? Queries make more sense. That's why we use enum constants. So they have to be given, in quotes, single or double doesn't matter. But they also say these are these potential issues to consider. So you can kind of read through it, right? So there are some issues like they're talking about sorting, they're talking about limitations. What about null or enumeration values and so on? So if it doesn't work for you, don't use it. Like if there are things that don't work for you, so just go through what are the other issues that you must be aware of when you use. Here I'm okay, like it's not a big deal. I'm talking about customer rating. It's not as if it's a big deal. So I'm okay. Maybe I never need for putting null values or like limitations. If you kind of go through it, all you have to see what are my limitations. Maybe duplicates. See how they've used small here. Like you could use poor, good, excellent, and so on. And they've used a concat, which I wouldn't do. But anyway, you can even concat. Concat is just concating it. So they're talking about a few things. Sure, go ahead and be aware before you use something. I'm using it for a very easy purpose. But help is only a click away. Whenever confused, whenever want to clarify, whenever you want to get more information, read about it. And that's how you will learn. Right? So I had never paid attention to limitations, but it says an enumeration value cannot be an expression, even one that evaluates to a string value. Oh, that's why I never use it. We never do a concat. So they say that you can't write it like this. You can't say concat med and em, though concat verb, the concat function in MySQL concats two strings, but you can do it. It says you can't use an expression. Nobody would, but who knows? Right? So as I said, I've never used that. Like it looks so odd. It's a limitation. You can do it anyway. So it says you cannot do it. You also cannot employ a user variable. User variable is this at. Whenever you see an at in front of a name, it's a variable. You will learn more about variables. I will kind of do it in the sense I don't have to. It's not in my course, but you will do more programming in your advanced course. But that's a variable. A variable in MySQL starts with an at symbol. That's its first. It has to start with an at. So it says you cannot use a user variable in an enumeration value. That means you cannot say, oh, whatever is in my size, replace it. You cannot do that. That's what it says. This pair of statements do not work. It says they won't work. So they are creating a table sizes and they have a field called size and this will not work. And it makes sense. So that's their limitation. Not a big thing. I've never done it, so I've never paid attention to it. But that's good to know that you can't have a variable. To me, the first one still says Why would you do that? But the second one, I wouldn't know till I read about it. It doesn't allow a variable name. Remember, a variable has a value, and if you would like to replace it, it's not. And we strongly recommend you do not use numbers as enumeration values, because it does not save on storage over the appropriate tiny int or small int type. So there it is. Why they don't want you to use values in your enumerated type. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm not saving any storage space at all. They're working like tiny ints. So if you really want to store put them as strings, you get exactly what you've said. That's what it is. So there it is. So everything is there. Just look up if you ever get confused as to what. And I would always recommend looking it up. Here it says enumeration value can also be the empty string. So we are allowed to put nothing in it. It can be empty. If it wasn't empty, then you will say, oh, I don't think I need it. Because customer rating, people may not give in a value at all. Right? People may say, I'm not giving it. Many times you don't do it. If you're filling up a form, you don't give a customer rating. So it allows null value. So we are okay. Right? If you want it to be not null, then I would add not null to it. But I haven't added not null to it because I'm saying you can't force the user. The user may not give a customer rating. So don't say not null. For this field, I'm not going not null. Doesn't make sense. I can leave it blank. Customer didn't give a rating, leave it blank. Or if you want, you can always put a default of 0. That's another thing. You can put a default of 0. That's up to you. Right? So there, my table, my fields are ready. So you've seen varchar, which you've seen before. Decimal is not new to you, but 4 is the total size, 2 always after decimal. Cost, because it is exact, I've used dec. You could use numeric also. Decimal is used more commonly. I think it's a more common type in languages than numeric. Numeric, I think they said they have kind of kept it to for other databases use numeric. And then enumerated is new for you because we haven't discussed in class before, but enumerated is just saying these are the values that can go into. Right? So my create table is ready. Of course, when you do this, you can always run your script if you want. So I'm going to first save this so that I can find it afterwards. And somewhere in summer 2017, and you guys are Wednesday, and let's save it as donuts. And just for myself, so that I can remember, I'll go week 3. You don't have to go how I go. That way I can remember when I started doing it at least. Right? So always save it in a name where you can find it. Names are important. Okay, and then when you run it, if you run it, you can run this script. There's nothing wrong in running this script. Notice how I have a small warning at line in my output window at the bottom. It says, I'm getting a warning on the drop table. I'm also getting a warning on the drop database. Because this is the first time I'm running my script. There is no database or a table like that. So that's fine. Warnings are okay. Not always okay, but these warnings are okay. Okay, do pay attention to warnings. Don't ignore them. But these ones we know. And you'll say, oh, do I have it? So you refresh it. And there is my table donuts. And there are tables under it. And the only table I have the TBL donuts, and it has columns. And those columns are what you've mentioned here. So always see that it works. And of course, it is going at a default place, at a default directory on my laptop.
Did you miss something specifically?
I did a refresh on the left-hand side. There's a refresh button, and then it comes up. Is that what you're asking? How I see?
No, I was wondering if you gave it a specific
Oh, no, name? No. I just called it donuts. I just called it donuts. The file was called donuts.sql. It will always have an extension of .sql because I need to run it. I mean, you could call it .txt, but it's useless. Like, how will I run that script? Okay. Okay. Now, of course, when the job is ready, my table is ready. My next job is to, of course, insert data into it. Please keep in mind, text data goes in. You can make that note for yourself. Text data in quotes, because you will be always asked to do this, and numeric without quotes. Could be it allows the numeric data in quotes, as far as I remember. Maybe you can't use it as a number. I haven't tried that. I'm okay with rules when they make sense. I usually don't try to break rules, right? And numeric numbers without quotes make sense to me completely. So even if MySQL is allowing you to enter it, sure, maybe it doesn't allow you to use them as numbers. I haven't even tried. You can go ahead and see if problems arise. That's up to you. But I don't want to see it in your script, right? So keep that in mind. So just this is for you. Text data in quotes and numeric without quotes is for you. When I come to date, we'll talk about date, but this doesn't have date. But date comes under the text one, same. You put them in quotes, though you can put them without quotes, but I'll tell you both ways. It can go both ways. Dates can go both ways, with quotes and without quotes, but they have to be input differently. Okay, so how do I put data into a table? Insert, perfect. Insert and insert into, and then comes the table name. Okay, had the wrong one, but that's okay. Now we've seen a few forms of input of inserting data. If you do not give a list, then you have to put a value for each field, right? Even if there is a default, if you're not giving a field list, then you have to input 1, 2, 3, 4 values for every record. So you'll say, what if I don't want to do it for donut cost because it has a default of 2? Then you can't use this insert. I can tell you a trick to do it. You can put the word default in it and it will, but if you don't want to put anything at all for it, then you'll have to write a different insert statement. Okay, this insert statement is expecting 4 values from you in the order name, type, cost, and rating. In that order. If you try to mix it, you'll have errors. Why? Because now, at least in this one, you can see they are of different types also. You have 2 varchars, but you have a decimal and enumerated. You can put a decimal value into a donut name. Maybe yes, but not the opposite. You can put a name in a donut cost. That will do. You can put 1, 2, 3 as the donut name, but it doesn't make sense, but the other will not work. Okay, so let's try now. Put a few values and I'll show you a few things. So again, whatever you like, if you want to follow me to make your life a little easy, please go ahead and do it. If you want to put your own values, it's up to you. So a decimal value can be put without decimal value. I'm saying 2 for my donut cost, right? I'm saying 2, but you could have said 2.00, nothing stops you, but it will be saved as a decimal number. Okay. Okay, the second one. So you can kind of take mine if you want, as I said. That will save you thinking about it. If you have your own options, please go ahead. I mean, it could be anything. And why I'm putting certain kind of data, because when we do select statements, I'll show you some results. That's why notice how I've gone 2 and 3. You don't have to. 4 values exactly. Let me stop and try to put 3 values and see what happens, just for the heck of it. Okay, we'll stop here and see what happens. Do I get an error? My last record at line number 27 has 3 values. And you'll say, oh, I just wanted to say 2 was a default. So my 2 is missing. It should automatically take it. Unfortunately, it shouldn't. Unfortunately, it won't. And it won't. Doesn't make sense. If you wanted to give that record, you will have to mention your field list. Okay, you will have to mention your field list. That's another option. Mention your field list and give whatever values you want. Right? So even if it had a default, you can do it. You'll say, how can I give it a default? Like I don't want to write another default, like another insert statement. So you have this option. I think you say default if I'm not mistaken. I'm almost positive you do. I'll put it in caps just because, so that it stands out. You can do this. So you've given in 4 values. You didn't want to type in 2, though I've been typing 2, but you don't want to type in 2, you can go default. Right? Maybe the default was not 2, it was 3, whatever, right? And now you can add a little more, please, just so that when we select, we have more. The whole purpose is to put some records because I want to, selection, we have to have some data to work with it. So caramel is a ring. And you can add more if you like. I'll just go 2.5, $2.50 for it. And now, just to show you, because I haven't said that my enumerated data type is not null, I can go this. Null is a reserved word. Null is a reserved word. Caps or small doesn't matter. You can put it in all caps. I'm putting all my reserved words in caps, but it doesn't matter. You already know that it is not case sensitive in terms of its reserved words. Everything works. Small words, small case also. You can do this also if you like. I'm using enumerated and I'm fine with enumerated. We checked. You could put a null value. You could put it there. Or the other option is opening and closing brackets. You can even do that. Opening and closing brackets is an empty string. Null is not an empty string, guys. They're two different things. Null means undefined. Okay, null means undefined. An empty string is defined, but it is an empty string. They're two different things. In any language, even in Java, an empty string is different from a null object, null string. So putting null is different from putting an empty string. Try empty. Try another one. I don't have so many, but anyway. So the jelly one is a filled one. So I have to do a little bit of homework on it because, of course, and I'm just putting some values. And usually, please see that you put your cost values with 2 places of decimal. You can put it with 1 and it will add a 0, but I mean, I wouldn't recommend. So this is different. Oh, sorry. Yes, 4 fields. Yes, you can do this. Right? That's an empty string. And we just read that you could put empty string in an enumerated data type. It was allowed. Let's try to put a value that doesn't exist to show you an error again. I don't know. We'll do it maple. How can we forget maple in Canada, right? I don't know, 4 maybe. And let's stop here at least just to see. And if you didn't want to, oh, sorry. And if you didn't want to put a value, then you will have to write a new statement. You'll have to do a new statement, guys. So if you wanted to put, just so that you don't forget this. So what do I have? I have the donut name. I have the donut type. And that's my rating. Okay, so I'm not putting the rating. I'm not putting the price. By default, it will become 2. If you want to, you don't have to go that route, that you have to give all 4 values in the order. You can always give your list. Nobody stops you from giving a list in any order you want. You don't have to go in order at all. Any fields in any order are allowed. And why, what was missing? Oh, that was not null. So that can be customer rating then. Customer rating was, oh, it had a default value. Okay, good. I can work. Not null. Cost was not null, but there was a default value. So I can work with this. I'm thinking, oh, every field was not null. 4 cannot be rating, but we are good because it has a default value of 2. Of course, if it didn't have a default value, then it would create problems. Let's try this, right? Let's try this, and then I'll show you one with the error. I mean, you can try whatever you like, but oh, at row 5. Oh, doesn't like the blank, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doesn't like the empty. It doesn't like the empty one. So that means you can make it null, but you can't do it as empty. As far as I remember, didn't it say that? Yeah, enumeration value. Oh, an enumeration value can also be empty string. So maybe if we want empty, if we want this way, where are we? Then we'll have to add it here. We'll have to add it here is what it, because it's not allowing me. So it was it allowing null? Let's see. Let's double check. Does it allow null? Okay, so it does allow null, right? So let's double check if the values have gone in. It's not giving an error, which means it should work, but okay, so any fields that have not been provided. So yeah, null has gone in. Null has gone in, but it isn't allowing this, right? We are getting an error here. So if I go, oops, too many L's. It's not allowing this. Without putting an empty, it's not. Okay, so let's try that one. It's already showing me an error, is it? Do I see a red squiggly? Yeah, I see it. Oh, no, that red squiggly is due to this. So there is no syntax error as per se, but when I run it, I have an error says data truncated for column customer rating at row 5. It doesn't like this, but it will start liking it. I think it will start liking it logically if I go like this. I've added it as my enumeration constant. If I go that way, of course, I'm sure it will allow it. Yep, then I can do it. So an empty string is different from null. Do you notice? There is the word null here and there is an empty string here. So if you have to check for something, you can say is null, or if you want to check for an empty string, you can check the length of it, or you can say is equal to quotes. So they're two different things. But we've learned that to use this, it should be an enumerated constant. So you can make that note because we just checked it. To allow this, it should be in the list. Does that make sense? You define in the enumerated list, you can say. If that makes more sense. Let me give you more space here, and let me give. I can close this one. Right, so to allow this, it should be defined in the enumerated list. I hope you understand enumerated list is what we've defined. Null is allowed. So this didn't require anything extra. So null is allowed as an enumerated constant. For the other one, I had to put it in my list. And notice when you did a select, bless you, when you did a select, you saw null in one of the records and you saw nothing in the other. So there is a difference. So this difference is what I'm trying to point out to you. Null is different from an empty string. They're two different values. Null means undefined, for your information. I'll give you a break in another 5 minutes, okay? So does that work? Does that look okay? Right, so we've done, try to give something that's not in the enumerated list. 14. Right, 14 is not in the enumerated list. And run it. And we have an error. Make sense? Customer rating cannot be 14. So notice how enumerated constant has made it more restrictive and better. And better in the sense you're not allowing values that don't exist. You cannot, and that makes sense. So definitely the enumerated data type is better than the tiny int for us. I could do it in tiny int, but I can't do it because my constants are blank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that makes sense. So it gives you more control over the input values, and that's good. It's not loose. You know what I'm trying to say? You can't give 14. The value has to lie between. So you can make a note here. Only the values mentioned. You can say only the values in the list are allowed. So 14 will not work. And this will of course work. By default, it should be 2. So let's run it again. By default, the last maple ring should be 2. And there you are. $2. I have many 2s. We can change them, but when you write, I only put 5 records. You can put 10, 15, whatever you like. To test your select statements, you have to have data in your table so that, and we'll add it as we need more. The more I show you, the more we can add. Okay, I've just put 5. Any questions on what we've done till now? Not running? Oh, another error? Okay, let's see.
Okay, what does it say? Can you remember?
Unknown call on donut name. So what is it trying to tell you? Go up. What did you call it here? Donut without an H. I know. Yeah, but you know you can get it, right? And this is a very small error. What does it say? Data truncated. Truncated means I have to cut it off, right? At row number 5. So no, not that row number 5. I just told you when it is talking about research statement, this is row number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have a blank here, but you haven't defined it. Add it to your enumerated list. So you can do it. I made a note also. To allow blank, it should be defined. Yes. Yes, sir. Now, donut name, same thing. It says, so you kind of not, so you are missing an H. You're both missing H's, right? I don't know why. Maybe you're looking more at Herbert than mine, or the vice versa. Right? You would know why. You have the same mistake, right? With the spelling name. I'll see that, Shane. Give me 1 minute. So this is saved. I'll put it on Blackboard. You can take a break of 20 minutes, come back, and we'll continue doing this. Okay? So we'll be back at 1:40. You asked me there.
Is the price of it the same as this one? Because it's a no donuts.
Doesn't matter at all, does it? Does all three owners come with the same price? Yeah, but whatever price you want. You're adding a record.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
There's nothing to be sure or unsure about this silly thing. You have to be sure about what you are doing. I'm not doing it, you are doing it.
Could I take one last look at the E number up above? Okay, thank you.
That's right. How many fields you are saying are you? And how many are you giving? I don't have 4 fields, I have 3 fields. I didn't put cost. I didn't. Look at my field list. My field list doesn't have cost. So if you say these are the number of fields I'll put, you have to put those many number of fields. Okay? Make sense? And it was default, it had a default value. Therefore, I chose not to do it.
इतने कुछ चीज कैसे वो बाकी असाइनमेंट दे दी बस ये पता है असाइनमेंट दे दी आज नहीं 20 तारीख को जून की उसमें बहुत बड़ा भी कह रहा है कि एक एसडीएल से आपने उसको एक्सप्लेन करना है उसके ऊपर वेबसाइट भी बनानी पावर पॉइंट भी बनाना वीडियो वही तो करना है वही तो सोचना है वही है ना तुझे हाँ यार फिर दूसरे में है उसके वीडियो बनाए उसको तेरे बहुत काम किया उसको दिया कि वो एक है जो मुझे याद नहीं है वो बनाना है कुछ मेरे ग्रुप नहीं बनाना है उसके ग्रुप में कुछ नाम लिखा है पता नहीं क्या है सैंपल उसमें है क्लास क्या है जितनी है उतनी से एटलीस्ट ग्रुप में ही है उसको भी से करा गया मैं एक्सपेल में रख दिया चल गया तुम बोले इसके बाद चावल की क्लास है
This is the next one to be added. To say this is the next record. Give me a minute, Shane.
My line is exactly.
So the column count doesn't match value count at all. Okay. Yeah, it's not. How many fields do you have here? How many?
Only
No? I have 3 of them. Yeah, rent. Yeah, sure. There it is.
I'm so tired.
And this was open right here because somebody else had the same problem.
I don't know, I think it's the glare from the light.
Oh, is it?
All the lights off.
Yeah. But does it, it's not clear from there, but it's a big name, like it's not small letter that.
Yeah, like the font's fine, it's just happy and shiny. I don't know, I think.
Okay, I don't know. It's quite clear to me, but that's what I know. Would you like to close your on? Yeah, because I need some light for sure. I don't know what was, so you try to do what was. There are 3 fields you're giving, then you have to provide 3 field names. Okay, let's start working on it again. So at this point of time, the script is running. We've kind of created a database, a table. We've populated it with data, right? So this is what you also did in your last class, and also you've done an assignment on it now. So you should be okay with this now. I'll do a couple more like this, and then I would give you a starting script every time. So now our next real job. Our next real job today, so it works. Notice how I have all my data. The empty string is different from null. And you see there is a record which says null, null, null at the end, all 4 nulls. You can ignore it. This is the next record to be added. If I had not said not null, you would see it empty, but there will always be an extra empty record at the end which says the next record to be added. Okay, it shows you all 4 values of null because I said not null up there. Okay, so it says, oh, the next null, if you don't give me a next record, it will have all nulls. Okay, let's kind of go from, you know what I could try? It's saying null for the customer rating. So that's its default value too. So since I haven't said not null, it's giving it a null too. Okay, so you can ignore the last record. It's the next record to be added. So you can ignore it. Okay, now let's do a few things. So this is our job today. So as when I do it, I'll always have a comment here to say what I'm doing. So now, guys, please. So now we are going to look at some select statements in SQL. You've seen one already. At line number 34, I have a select star from table donuts. This is a select statement in its simplest form, which says select all records and all columns of the table. That's what it is saying. So all records are selected, and in every record, every column is selected. Of course, it will be different as I go on, and that's what we are going to learn. So I'm going to give you questions here. So this one, if you want, you can put a comment for yourself. This is basically saying show. It shows on the screen, okay, or display all records, or rows if you want, if that's easier for you. This is going to show all rows and columns. That's what this select clause does. So at the end of this script, make a habit of always putting this statement so that you can see, oh, yes, my table got created. That's kind of proving it. If you don't have it, who knows what's happening? You know what I mean? Like that's double checking that, yes, your table was created and it is populated with data. Okay, so let's start now. We are going to do some queries, and queries simply means to query, to ask for, to select data. That's what we are going to do. Okay, so I would like you to select all those rows with apple fritter information. So I'm only interested in basically the donut whose name is apple fritter. That's what I'm only interested in. So now I'm only interested in that record, right? So if I want to look at the cost, and there are so many records in my table, I don't want to kind of search through them. I want to say, just show me the record with apple fritter. So this is how you will do it. So the select clause says select, right? If you want to select particular columns, you could do that, but I'll go kind of star for now. So star, the list after the select is the columns. So I don't have a list, I have a star here. Star means says all columns. Okay. So after the select, what you see is the field list to be selected. So star means the entire field list. So all the fields. So I'm saying select rows with apple fritter information. So from will remain the same, of course. The name of the table will remain the same. But now I'm only interested in those records where the name of the donut is apple fritter. That's all I'm interested in. Okay. So where your donut name, if you followed my names, then this should help. And notice how it was helping me. Where, and I'll tell you different things. So we'll go one by one. Okay. Where donut name is equal to apple fritter. And I'll do a few things. And we'll write one select statement and we'll run it. We'll write the second one and we'll run it. That way you can see results as you go on. So now you're saying select only those rows or row. There could be more than one apple fritter, but there isn't, right? So now we are doing select selected rows. So only those rows that match this criteria, right? So you're basically matching criteria. Matching the given criteria. And what is your criteria? Your criteria is that the donut name should be apple fritter. Please notice the equal to, right? Notice the equal to, and it says the name is apple fritter. What do you expect? You have one with apple fritter. Do you have one with apple fritter? Yes. The spellings have to match, but the case does not matter. The search is not case sensitive. I can make it case sensitive. You say, no, I want it to be case sensitive. I'll tell you how to make it case sensitive, but it is not case sensitive. Just we are talking about case sensitive. You're not talking about spellings or blanks, or I mean, there's a difference. All it is it is case insensitive. Sorry. It's case insensitive. So even if I go apple A small, whereas the apple fritter in my table is a capital A, this should work. So let's try to save it and run it. And I only see one record of apple fritter. Make sense? So the where is basically giving you the criteria to search records. So there is where comes. The stars stands for, stars basically signifies the entire list. All fields, let's say. So let's kind of put it, use star to display all columns. Okay. I'll kind of put some comments as I go on, and then I think you can make head and tail out of it as we go on. Make sense? Yes.
What happened to the previous select statement?
What happened to the previous? Oh, they're both here. There are two tabs here. You'll have two tabs in your output window, right? So as you go on, you can kind of click on it and yeah, it will, no, it is not creating two tables. It's only displaying. Exactly, right? Keep in mind, this is not creating any new tables. Selection only displays something on the screen. You could save it in a table. You could do select and then save it, but that's not what we are doing right now. Okay. Yeah. So they're not creating tables. Keep that in mind. Okay. Now let's look at next one. I'm going to make it case sensitive. Let's make the search case sensitive. Make search case sensitive. So of course, this will not change. And I'll remove this comment because, and how you make a search case sensitive is you add, you have to say, I want to use a different collating sequence. Are you aware of the word collating sequence? Collating sequence in a language means how the various characters are related to each other. In which sequence do they collat? For example, 0 is less than 1, is less than 2, is less than 3, and so on. So you use the Unicode, right? So you have different character sets, ASCII, Unicode, ABCDIC. So they're different. And the sequence is different. Sequence means, for example, just as an example, in ABCDIC, the numbers, the digits are less than the letters. Whereas in ASCII, the numbers occur in between. So the small case are less. First come the small case, then the digits, then the uppercase. So everything has a sequence. For example, for you guys also, is 0 less than 1? Yes. Is 10 greater than 5? Yes. Right? How do we know? Because that's what we've learned. Right? And the computer has to be told that these are the rules. So these rules, they're called collating sequences. So if I want to kind of say, I forget now, something to do with collating sequence. Of course, I'll have to search. I can't remember it, but it has to do with collating sequence. So we'll say something like select case sensitive. You just have to add a statement, MySQL. Case sensitivity. Oh, there it is. I see it. Column name. Yeah, there it is. Collat. So you have to just say what my collating sequence is. So there is a default. I think the default is general. And I think Latin bin 1 should work. So I'll kind of take collat Latin bin, if I remember correctly, and I'm going to add it here. Right? So there are different collating sequences. So they kind of, one is case sensitive, one is not case sensitive. So I think the default is general, and this will work with this. We can try. And will you have an answer now if I make it case sensitive? Is there an apple fritter with a small a in your table? No. So you should see an empty table. That way we will know, yes, it is working. Okay, so let's double check. So let's do a run. Oh, I have an error. Collation is not valid for characters at UTF-8. Oh, okay, it's something else. There's a certain way of doing it. I forget now. It has to do something with UTF-8. Yeah, they're right. There is a collage sequence statement. That's all. Oh, they're setting it. Okay, now that's another way they're doing it. So notice how you can set it for your whole script. If you want to set it for the whole script, you use a set statement. If you only want to do it for a particular query, you add it to the query. But seems like I'm not doing not writing it correctly. And if I can find some other example, I should be okay. So I can do a set to. That's not what I want. Then it will work on my own script. The collat is coming before it. No, that doesn't make sense. There's another way of writing it, an easy one. I can't remember it off my head. Oh, well, it will come back. It's something UTF. I forget what the collat is, but it is there. Like I thought the manual would help me. It's not very helpful. So let's try to see if I have something else. How I make case sensitive string comparison. Okay, let's see if we have exact answer. Notice that binary is not the same as case sensitive. So the suggestion use binary for case sensitive, compare is incorrect. No, something like Latin 1 CS, I don't know. Yeah, they've done the same way. They say collat, Latin general, and CBin. Oh, well, I'll get it. Don't worry. I'll tell you. I'll search for it when you are working on something else. But there is a way of doing it. And it's not a big deal. I just have to find the right one. I don't have the right one. It doesn't like it. It says is not a valid one. So we'll have to add something for it. Maybe bin UTF-8 or something. Can't remember. It says it's not valid. So who knows? Oh, okay. I'm getting some error. I'll check it afterwards. Don't worry. I'll get it to you. Just a little bit of search is needed. I'll comment it for now.
We used to have like where like.
No, like is different. We'll talk about like in a minute. No, that's different. Like has nothing to do with, like is a replacement for equal. We'll talk about it. Okay. So this is to show you that case is insensitive and I'm on the right track. I just don't have the right name, right? Something to do with the name. It says it is not supported. There is no Latin bin UTF in MySQL. So something to do with this, which one to use. That's what is wrong. And I can't remember it off my head, but I'll get it. Don't worry. It's not a big deal. No, it has nothing to do with like. I'll answer your like question now. Suppose you want to find those records that have apple in their name. It could be an apple fritter. It could be apple something else, whatever, but apple, right? Apple in its name. There is where you will use like. So let's go to the next one. So it's say select rows. Oh, selected rows. Kind of. So select rows with apple in its name. Let's complete that now. Okay, here, let's go this. You know what? Let me see. Let me go by the sequence I have so that I don't miss out anything. Okay, we are good. So select rows with apple in its name. Okay, now there are a few things. Apple is in the name. It starts with the word apple. It ends with the word apple. There's so many options, but I'm saying with apple in the name. So apple could be anywhere. It could be Anju's apple fritter, right? It could be just apple. It could be apple fritter hello. Hello apple, like anything. Apple could be anywhere, beginning, end, inside, wherever. Now, if you want to do that, we are going to use the wildcard character. It's called a wildcard because it is replaced. And there are more of them. I'm going to use the wildcard character, this, which stands for 0 or more characters. That's what its meaning is. So wherever you see a percentage, it means there could be any character at this place. 0 or more, no character or any number of characters. So now let's look at this. So I'm going to take the same thing and see what the difference will be. So I'm going to remove this comment because we've seen it now. So you don't use equal. Remember, equal is for exact match. You want to write it and exact match. Write it, exact match. The match has to be exact. Word to word, blank to blank. That's exact match. There is a difference between case sensitivity and exact match. Okay. Now, if I make this apple fritter a double, more than one blanks, this is not an exact match now. I won't get an answer. I have an empty display table. So this is not an exact match, right? So equals stands for exact match. Keep in mind. So equal is exact match. Suppose I don't want to do an exact match. I know there are many apple donuts in my shop. I just want to show all apple donuts, whatever, as long as it has apple in its name. Now for that, you use like. I'm going capital because I'm putting my reserved words in caps. You don't have to. You're saying anything that has apple in it. Okay. Now, whenever you use something like, it means an inexact match. So let's go up and write here and say like is inexact match. Right? But how to say that it should be there? There could be something else also. So you don't say like apple. That would be incorrect. That would be incorrect. Now, like apple, you're saying it like apple means it's equal to apple. This is wrong. You don't say like here. Whenever you use like, you use percentage. You use a wildcard character with likes. Likes will always use wildcard characters. That's why you're saying it is like this. If you wanted to say it was apple, you would go is equal to apple. If you're saying it is like apple, it will say you will use wildcard characters. So I've shown you one wildcard character. I'll give you another one in a minute. But this one says that there could be any 0 or more characters before the word apple. There could be any 0 or more characters after the word apple. And it could be only apple also. 0 or more characters before, 0 or more characters after. So as long as the word apple in case sensitive, I'm not making it case sensitive. If you want to make your whole script case sensitive, all your searches, then I'll use a set statement at the top. Another use of set statement for your information. If you want to make a query case sensitive, then we add that collat, and it will come back. I'll tell you what it is. Now I will see all those donuts in which the donut name has the word apple in it. Run the script. You see, I got apple fritter and I also got apple. They both start with apple, but it could be anywhere, doesn't matter. Because percentage stands for 0 or more characters. Yes. Okay, SQL, it is not case sensitive. It's not case sensitive. To make it case sensitive, we will have to use the set statement or do something like this, which I can't remember, right? Otherwise, it is not case sensitive. Search is always case insensitive. But we are not talking about case sensitivity here. We are talking about inexact matches. So equal to is an exact match. Spelling has to match. Everything has to match. Since case is not matching, right? They're two different things. Case sensitivity is not exact match. They're two different things. So it is still case insensitive, but now like means the English word like, something like this. You know what it means? Something like this. So I'm saying anything that has apple in it will work. You'll say, what if I only want to search something that ends with apple? What do you think I should do? Or only starts with apple? What do you think? Put 2 and 2 together? What should be my select statement? If I say only starts with apple, you will remove the percentage from the? Exactly. Now this says it has to start with apple. What's your name? Hardeep. Just trying to learn names, okay? Because if people speak, then I should know their name because they're contributing to the class. So it's good that they stand out. They're helping out, right? And it makes sense. Try to interact in the class, guys. It's good to know. So now this will start with the word apple. So if I had something before the apple, just for the heck of it, I'll say Anju's apple. You don't do it if you don't have to do it. I'm going to say Anju apple fritter. Now it doesn't start with apple. Let's see what do I get. Run it. So in the first one I get Anju apple fritter and I get apple because it has the word apple in it wherever, right? But in the second one, I only get apple because that's the only one that is starting with apple. So see the use of the percentage? Percentage stands for 0 or more characters. So there may be none or there may be more. But if I don't put a percentage, then definitely then definitely I'm only looking for something, it has to start with apple, right? So similarly, if you have to end with apple, quite logical. If it has to end with apple, then you should have what? Put the percentage in the front. And apple doesn't have to be an alone word, guys. It doesn't have to be alone, standalone. It says any number of 0 or more characters before it, but the last, not the word, the last 5 characters are apple. So even if it was called sapple, I mean, if it wasn't called apple, it was called sapple, it would work. Right? So it doesn't have to be a word. Okay, so let me make the apple a sapple for whatever reason. So sapple, apple is in it. It does not start with apple, but it ends with apple. Okay, let's try again. Oh, bless you. Okay, so sapple ends with apple, right? Sapple ends with apple. So it has an S, but I'm not saying they have to be word. The apple word has to be alone. Anything before it. This starts with apple. There is nothing which starts with apple now. The apple has become the sapple, right? And this has apple in it. So that's how you use percentages. That's how you use percentages. And it could be somewhere in between, but you'll say, what if I want to have something like AP percentage E? That would also work. Like it's odd, but it would work. So what would this give you? Maybe you're ultra lazy. You don't even want to type the whole word apple. So you go, it starts with AP. It has E at the end, like just for the heck of it. You will still find anything that has anything. So if you have the combination AP and E, 3 letters, as long as anything before it, anything between it, it will work. Right? That's how it works. That's percentage. There is also a dash. There's also a dash. So another wildcard character. I think there are 3 if I remember correctly in MySQL. Okay, so dash stands for exactly 1 character. It is replaced by just 1 character. Okay. So if I wanted to look for apple for whatever reason, just for the word apple, I'll go APP and anything and an E. So it will, if your name, your donut name has APP, anything and an E, it will look for those records. That combination, it is looking for that combination. There is no percentage here. You could combine everything. You can combine percentages and underscore, whatever you like. But this stands for 1 character only. Right? So let's see. Do we have anything where the name is like? It has APP, 1 character, and then an E. And since we are kind of going one by one, you can always look at the last table. So you find apple. What happened to my? But I removed the S.
Did you do update statements?
No, we aren't doing update statements, please. Why doesn't it give me just apple? Is there a blank after the apple? Did I remove S and put a blank there? No. Do I have an error by any chance that I'm not? No. Why don't I get? Both should come up, right? Donut name is like apple. I'm looking for the exact word apple, and it can be case sensitive. APPLE is apple. I must have spelled it right. Can't spell it wrong. That is strange. 2 records should come up. That is strange. And it's saved. It is saved. Otherwise, you would see a star here. That is strange.
What's the issue?
Apple is not coming. Oh, apple is coming up. Sorry. Apple is coming up. Apple cruller, the apple fritter is not coming up, and it's right. Okay, why is apple fritter not coming up? Because I have Anju, I have fritter. There are many more characters in it. Now it is looking for a name which has APP, one character and NE. Guys, you can't have 2 lessons in the same classroom. I can't teach like this. I cannot. You're talking too much. You're disturbing me. If you have to listen to me, you do that. If you can't understand what's going on, then you have to ask afterwards, not during class, right? Because you're disturbing me. You're talking so much that I can hear you. I'm sorry, but I can't teach like this. It can't happen. You're disturbing me. I'm sure others are disturbed too. If I can hear you, then others can hear you too. So please be respectful for that, for others, right? So apple is coming up, and it makes sense because I'm only looking for APP, one character and an E. I will not have Anju apple fritter because it's not only apple. It's APPLE, okay? So, and if you wanted more than 1 characters, you can use that underscore as many times as you like. Nothing stops you. Now I'll have an empty table. I have 2 of them. So I'm looking for APP underscore underscore E. So I need 2 characters. Do I have anything that starts with an APP, has 2 characters and an E? No. So you can put as many dashes as you want. You can put percentages. You can combine it with percentages. I can put a percentage here. Now Anju apple fritter will come. Now Anju's apple fritter will also come. There is something APP-E in it. So you can combine whatever you like, as long as you understand what you're doing. Right? So there, it's back to normal. Make sense? So percentage stands for 0 or more characters. That's not what I wanted to show you because we've already done it. And the underscore, did I put? I'm so sorry. The underscore stands for exactly 1 character, and you can have as many of them. So I could go A underscore P underscore E. Like, you know what I mean? Like anything you want. You can use anything you want in any combination you want. You have to look at the question. What is it asking me? Right? So exactly 1 characters. You can use as many, and you can combine. You can combine wildcard characters. Right? I think those are the only 2 available in MySQL, but I could be wrong. So we'll call them, they're called wildcard. All languages have them. Somehow in my head it says I think there are 3 of them, but I could be wrong. I do so many programming languages that pattern matching. It should be your wildcard characters in the pattern. So there is a like and there is a not like, but that's not what we are interested in. We are interested in our, see, there is a collat. You can use collat. Where is it? So you can, oh, I see another one. Here it is. No, percentage matches 1 character, this character matches 1. Okay, so you can put the escape, which is okay. Okay, those are the only 2. We are good. I don't know. I thought there were 3 of them. No big deal, right? So you've got the like. So there is a difference between equal and like. One is an exact match and one is an inexact match. Equal cannot use percentages and underscore. You don't use wildcard characters in equal because it's an exact match, right? You only use wildcard characters in the like. So don't mingle the 2. You're using the word like, you're using the verb like, and you're saying apple. That's wrong because like says it is an inexact match. You have to have a wildcard character. That means you don't know the difference between equal and like. So be very careful what is being asked. So equal is an exact match. Percentage like is an inexact match. Case sensitivity has nothing to do with exact and inexact matches. By default, it will search case insensitive by default. You can always change it using a set statement to change it for the whole script, for your own script, or you can add it in a select statement by using the collat. It has something to do with the collat, but what is the collat? I can't remember the name. I can't just remember it. It's something to do with binary. Okay, so is like and equal clear? So exact match, unexact match, wildcard characters are percentage and underscore, and there was a backslash percentage also. So you can double check how does that work. Once we have that, let's go further. Let's try to do something like, I want the type to be ring. So I want to see ring donuts. and price as 2 and cost as 2. So of course, you can always combine conditions. You have 3 Boolean operators, and, or, and not, and you have all relational operators, less than, equal than, less than, equal to, everything. So let's, if you want to make your note for yourself, the Boolean operators are and, or, so I can't say and again, not. So these are your Boolean operators. You all know Boolean, right? In other languages, they're called the same. Operators. Right? You have these Boolean operators as far as I can remember, and I think I remember right. And then you have your relational operators. And the relational operators, if you want to make a note, we won't need it. Oh, we will. And the relational operators are operators. I always mess up in my operator spelling. Okay, so the relational. You don't have to make this notes, it depends on you, but anyway. The usual, you have greater than, you have greater than equal to, you have less than, you have less than equal to, you have equal to, of course, you've seen the equal to, right? And there is a not equal to, and the not equal to are written in 2 ways actually in SQL. This is not equal, that's one way of saying not equal, and that's another way of saying not equal. They're both not equal. Okay, so these are your relational operators. Relation means they're called relational because they tell you the relationship between 2 operands. It always works on 2 operands. It's a binary operator. And Boolean means it gives you a result of true and false. So you kind of combine them. You can combine them with and, you can combine them with or, not as a unary operator. Your not means false becomes true and true becomes false. You're doing a not of a value. Okay, so you have and, or, and not, and you have relational operators greater than, less than, greater than equal to, less than equal to, and not equal to, and these both are not equal to. Let me remove this dash so that there is no confusion. And let me remove this dash there. Right, so now you would just do it as if you were writing it in any other language. Very English-like, right? So I'm looking for the ring donuts. So what is ring? Type, right? So the donut type is ring. And the cost is 2. So I just have to combine. So select, we are only talking, still doing all stars. Okay, so the donut type. Now, if you think there are more rings, there could be, I don't know, round ring, elongated ring. I mean, if that's what you want to do, you would go like ring, right? If you're doing an exact match, you would say equal to ring. Okay, so where donut type is equal to ring, you can use single quotes or double quotes, okay, whatever you like, doesn't matter. And the cost, did we say cost or did we say something else? I think donut cost is what we said, right? There it is. Donut cost is equal to 2. There, make sense? You're just adding your criteria to your where clauses. So you just add it, you don't say where and you don't again repeat where, you write the where once and you give your compound condition. And compound conditions work the same way like in any other language. And or go from left to right. Not has the highest priority. Right? Again, you have to look up what is the priority. It's no different in SQL than in other languages, but you can always look up. You can look up and say Boolean operators SQL, and then they'll tell you the priority. And or usually have the same priority, and then you go left to right. You can always change priorities by parenthesizing, right? You can always put brackets and change the priority of any of your operators. So that's the donut type is equal to ring. So only rings that only have ring in it, the word ring will come up, not like ring. Though we don't have any donut types like ring, but just so that you know. Try. So there were a few rings, but I'm not sure about the cost. Okay, so we have chocolate is a ring, maple is a ring. They're both have the cost too. If you change the cost, it won't work. Like the two, it's only showing ring and, and both conditions have to be true. And means both conditions have to be true. So the type has to be ring and the cost has to be equal to 2. And exactly works like and operator in all other languages. Of course, if it is like, it would be different, though I don't have it, but that's what it would be. You can do a like and you will still have the same result, But remember, whenever I see like in your statements, I'm thinking, oh, you are saying something else, like percentage or an underscore. So don't use like here. Like, it doesn't make sense. It absolutely doesn't make sense. Logically, you're not using the right verb. You're not using the right verb. So let's see what SQL does. I don't think it complains. We'll know in a minute. No, it doesn't complain. It's kind of lazy, right? It doesn't complain. I don't want to see it, guys. I don't want to see any illogical statements at all. I know that's not logical. It's not making sense at all. Why are you using like? You're only looking for ring, and you don't have any wildcard characters. So MySQL is, and it's kind of loose, because remember, these are not strict languages, right? I wouldn't like to see it, so don't do it, please. If you're doing an exact match, please do an exact match. If I say anything that has ring in it, then you can go, you should go like, you cannot say is equal to and use percentages. I don't know. Let's see if that also misbehaves, or for me, this is misbehavior because it shouldn't work like this. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? But if it is, it's not showing me a syntax error. And if the results are also coming, then logical errors, there are no logical errors too. Let's see, do I have any? I don't have any logical errors. But do you see something? I don't have any results, which is good. So there is a logical error, because it doesn't make sense to it. It's doing an exact match, and you're saying, oh, the exact match must have a percentage, and it says, I'm confused. So I don't see an error as per se, but I see an empty table. And maybe you have an empty table, but I don't have an empty, like, I have to have results. So always double check. Oh, I have an empty table. The answer could be right. It may not have an answer, but we do know that it has rings. We do have rings. I have 3 rings. One was default, which was $2. One was $2.50, and this was again $2. So I have 2 answers. So logically, it's not saying that you cannot have an empty display table. You could have an empty display table. It could be a valid answer, but it is incorrect here. And the incorrectness is coming because you wrote it incorrectly. You're using a percentage with an equal, and equals are exact matches. That's why. Keep that in mind. So it was working with like, but it was not working with equal. So why even try to make errors? If you exactly know what you're doing, do it right. Right? So who knows where it will give you an error and where it won't. But if you know what you're doing, you cannot go wrong. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so those are relational operators. Of course, if you have equal, if you wanted ring donuts with cost greater than or equal to 2, not a big deal. I'm sure you can do it. What do you need to do? Nothing. All you have to do is change your relational operator from what you have to greater than equal to 2. If you only wanted to say greater than 2, then I would put a greater than. Everybody is aware of relational operators, right? So they work the same way. So you have greater than, equal to, less than, equal to, and not equal to. Now let's look at something else. Okay, let's try this. Trying to show you whatever, and if things miss, it's not a big deal, in the sense that you can always look up. Okay, so let's try ring donuts. It could be anything else also. I don't need to do and with it. And we are saying cost is between 2 and 3, and include it. Inclusive. Inclusive means 2, 3, and anything between 2 and 3. That's what inclusive means. Okay. So I need to see between 2 and 3. And if you don't want ring, we can kind of remove the ring. We are looking for all donuts between 2 and 3. We can do that too. Okay. It really doesn't matter what you are doing. I'm just kind of, because it's easy to copy, that's why I'm doing it. Okay. What will we do? So the cost has to be greater than or equal to 2, and add another and. And please remember, you have to repeat your field name again. You just can't say as you say it in English. That means greater than or equal to 2 and less than or equal to 3. We'll have to write the field name again. Field name needs to be repeated. Otherwise, it won't work. Like, it will work, but the results will not be right. God knows what it will do, but like syntactically, it is okay. So you have to repeat. as far as I remember, unless things have changed in the recent version of which I don't think they have, because syntax things like this don't change. This will now show you all. If you don't want the ring, you can remove it. But this is just showing you that you can have more than one ANDs, so I'll leave it. You can have any combination of ANDs and ORs or whatever, right? It's just a statement, a compound statement. So you're basically saying any donut between 2 and 3, but has to be ring. So all donuts will come up, all ring donuts, because one was $2, another was 2, and another was $2.50. We had 3 answers, right? So please double check your answers. There it is. All donuts come up because 2 were 2 and 1 was $2.50. If you did not want to include the 2 and 3, then you would use the greater than sign and less than sign. Right? But what I'm trying to show you here is there is an alternative. There is an alternative. You can use between, which is easy. Why? Because less to type. Less to type. And more English like. And donut cost is between 2 and 3. Now here I don't have to repeat my field name, and it's more English like. But between will include both of them. Keep that in mind. So if I did not want to include 2 and 3, I cannot use it. Between will automatically include both limits, right? Between includes both limits. So you can say use between, which includes both limits. You have to keep that in mind. Yes, Shane?
Is there a reason we use?
Either, no reason at all. You can use either, whatever you like. This is less typing and more English-like. You can use either. There is no reason one over the other, your preference. But you now know the between also, right? You have to keep in mind that the between is basically including both, right? Anything else that I can show you? So OR, of course, OR is available. Like OR is available like normal OR. One of the conditions is true, right? So let's try OR. So you select donuts. So donuts which are either ring or what did we have, or filled? We had filled also, right? So what are these ring and filled? They are not names, of course, they are donut types, right? So you have to select all those donuts. Oh, let's try to do something. And let's say display name, and let's choose some other field. You have the name and maybe the type, and let's say cost. I'm not interested in rating, just for the heck of it, just to show you so that you know. Okay, let's try this. And notice now I can't use star. I'm not showing all fields. So what will you do? You will give your field list. So you will say donut name. I need to show the cost also. I need to show and the order doesn't matter. Now you can decide the order and you can decide how you want to show it. Okay, so let's try all 3. So I'm going to go name. Usually the way I give it is what I'm expecting from you, but that doesn't mean that you can change it, but I'll show you how you can change it. I'll try to put it in the same order right now, and then I'll show you how you can change it. Not a big deal, just change their place, that's all. Type, this is my third one. Oh, did I miss something? You don't have to go kind of there. So please separate your field names by commas and give it in the sequence that is asked. If not asked, then it's up to you. But now you can show the field list yourself. So the star is replaced by field names, separated by commas. That's the rule. So you'll say, can I use all 4 fields instead of star? Yes, you can. But who wants to type all the fields? But you can, it's not incorrect. So instead of star, you could have gone donut name, comma, donut type, comma, donut cost, comma, donut customer rating. You could have given all 4 fields. Like an insert, you don't have to give the field list, or you could give the complete field list.
Is there a way to do like star and then, like in this case, like star and then exclude the one?
No. It would be nice, right? No. Yes.
You don't
Yes, I don't need the last comma. Thank you. I don't need the last comma, of course. My list is finished here, right? Try this now. So we've said, what did we say? Donuts which are either ring or filled. Okay, so it isn't complete yet. So put an or. And what did we say? They are either rings or they are filled. And again, you can use double quotes, guys. Nothing stops you. You can use double quotes or single quotes. Don't mix and match. Anytime you want to escape it, escape it. If I was looking for something called filled, just for the heck of it, and I wanted to look for fill quote ed, this is how I would look for it. Same as you put in a name, right? So anywhere if you have a quote inside quotes, escape it. So this will look for anything which is either ring or fill quote ed. Of course, there is nothing with fill quote ed, so only rings will come up. So see, this is what happens. So what new have you learned? The list. So your last answer will not have 4 fields. Okay, so let's try. Look at the last here. How many fields do you see in the display? 3. The sequence, the same sequence as you've given. You could change it and check. And notice I only see rings. You'll say, but I have filled too. But remember, I'm not looking for filled. I'm looking for fill quote ed. And I don't have any fill quote ed. But this is just to show you that you can use the same rule or the same technique that you used when you were inserting data. When you insert data and you want to put a quote in it, you escape it. You want to put a double quote in it, escape it. And you can do it here too, but we don't want to. But remember, we can. There's nothing. Now I'll see 2 results. I'll see my filled ones also. And they're there. I have 1 filled one also. And they're all there. Right? So let's try again. I want to show something else now. For whatever reason, if you don't like the name of your field, so again, the sequence doesn't matter. You can change the sequence. So I can say can change the sequence of columns from original. Just so that you know, like, you just have to know what can be done. It's not a big deal, but you should know, because then you say, oh, can I or can I not? Okay, so let's try this again. Let's put it here. Let's just change it. I'm going to give, though it doesn't look fine, but that's okay. I'll give the type first. Oops. There. I'm going to show the type first, then I'm going to show the name, and then I'm going to show the cost. Right? Change it and try it. Notice type comes first, then comes the name, and then comes the cost. So you can change the way in which you're, remember, this is not doing anything to the original table. This is only for display purposes. So it shows the type, it shows the name, and it shows the cost. Yes. Yeah, because I have filled and ring. I'm looking for either filled or rings. Yeah, but I changed that too. In that one I had filled. Remember, I had this. I was looking for these. And of course I won't have filled there then. Right? Yeah, it was not an error. I'm looking for a donut whose type is this. You see? Therefore you were getting filled. I was looking for donuts with this type. I don't have any donuts with this type. I was showing you how, if you want to do a search and you want to search for something that has this, how do you put it in your code? So of course there are only 3 results here. There is no, right? That's why we were getting 3. I removed it because it was kind of silly, right? It was just silly. That's why. Yes, Shane. What does the error say? Bring your mouse over it and tell me what the error says.
Yeah, so it said there was code blah, blah, blah. Column donut underscore cost, where clause.
Yeah, so you have named it something else and you're using donut cost, which I'm using. See, what did you call your field?
Oh, yeah.
See? So if you have to copy me, then you have to, and if you don't want to copy me, all you have to remember is your field names. You could have called them differently from me. So if you're trying to write what I'm writing, please ensure that you called those fields exactly what I called them. Only then will my script, my queries work for you. So if you're seeing an error that this field does not exist, it is trying to tell you that that's not what you called it. Very simple errors in SQL. Very simple. Very descriptive, very easy to follow. They're just normal English errors. Read them and you will understand them. But I want you to take care of them so that you get in the habit of understanding it. I can do it. But that's not the purpose, right? The purpose is that you learn it and you learn from your errors. Once you do it with your own hand, you'll never ask me again. I come and tell you, you'll forget it. And they're not difficult. They're not difficult at all. Okay, now what? So we've seen or, and again, just so that I keep it with my, that's what happens, right? If I'm trying to use a convention for myself, then I have to stick to it. Okay, so we have given a different type, we have given a different sequence, and we've given a different, same sequence. Now, can we change the names of the field? Remember, this is display names. These are not changing the names of the, I'm only showing in display. This is not changing the names in the table, only the display names. Beware, these are not column names, right? This is not changing the table. So make a note for yourself, because many students think, oh, now they've changed. We are not changing in the table. That's not how you do it. There is another way of changing the name of a column in a table. It's the alter statement. This is only changing the display names. And you'll say, what does she mean? All I mean is this. I'll give you more space so that you can see. Okay, so I want to call donut type as, you can use the word as, you may not necessarily. And then you can say as, if it is a single word, you needn't put it in quotes, but it's a good habit. So just let's put it in quotes. Then you will never forget. I'm just giving small names so that you can see. Type, right? Do you want to leave donut name as name? Sure, but if you want to change it, and single words, you don't even need to put it in single quotes so that you know. And what would you like to call the cost? So notice how I'm writing the word as somewhere. I'm not writing the word as, and both will work. And here again, I'll say as, but I need the quotes because I'm going to say it's more than one word. So, oh, my caps lock was on. So you have to remember a few things. The easiest thing to remember is put the name in quotes, and that way you don't have to remember single or more than one words. If you put it in quotes, you're always safe. But you don't have to if it is only a single word. So you didn't have to put it here too. So I'm showing you mixes and matches, right? So if you want to kind of make a note for yourself. Oh, why do I have 2 comments? I don't know. Anyway, maybe you just placed it at the wrong place. Okay, so now you can put a note. You can put a note for yourself. The display name, if one word can come without quotes or can be written without quotes. Only if it is a single name, not double. I mean, if it's more than one word, it gets confused. A single word it does. And you can use as or without, if you like. Can, so let's say can use as. It's like as, like Anju as, and I can tell you my alias names, another name for it. That's what it means, okay? As. So what will happen? You will still see 3 fields, but the headings will be different. This will be called type. This will be called name, and it's coming in blue because it's a reserved word, guys, right? It's coming in blue because it's a reserved word, but it's a display name. And this I can't put without quotes. See, try putting it. It will be confused. It says, I don't know, like it's looking as if it's a variable name. It's in black. So it will look for something called price, blank, dollar, and it will be confused. You'll get an error. I'll show you. So let me try to put it, be correct first. Let's try this, right? Try it. And notice the, see, the column names have changed. Only display names. It hasn't changed in the table. Please keep in mind, this is only display names. I could put it caps, small, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. It was, my caps was on, so it came in all caps. Doesn't matter what you call it. So I said type, name, and price, right? And I just put $sign with it. And I think because the field width was small, it put dollar in the next line. It's not because it was in 2 words. Okay. Now try to remove. You don't remove it. I'll remove it because then you'll have to put it back. And you are more lazy than I am. There. Let's try this. Let's try this. You see, I see a red here itself. I see an error right here. That something is wrong. If I try to put it together, it doesn't like it even now because it takes the parenthesis as not a word. It doesn't like it. Try it. It already says you have a syntax error, so why even try it? But anyway, it says, please, you have a syntax error. Please check your manual. So you can't, anything which is not a word, you cannot put it in. You cannot put it without quotes. So therefore, it's just easy. Put it in quotes. Put it in quotes. Put it in quotes. Then you don't have to, worry about it. Whether it's a single word, whether it's more than one word, whether it's a sentence, doesn't matter. Put it in quotes. As depends on you. Some people like to say as because it makes it clearer. Some people don't. It's up to you. And now run it again. See that your cursor is not highlighting anything before you run it, because then it says only execute the selected portion. And there's nothing to execute here and it will give you an error. So nothing should be highlighted if you want to only run parts of it, then you go here. So if you wanted to execute after this, for example, put your cursor here and then use the other one. Then use this button. Then it will only execute after the rest. If you want to select something, one statement at a time, as long as your database is selected, sometimes it doesn't and we have to select it from the left-hand side. Is this the one that I just did? Yes, I can do this. If it runs, sometimes it doesn't, I have to select the left-hand side one. But it does. So you can do it either way. Oh, the blank took it to a different line and there was no blank, it put it on the same line. That's interesting to know. But a double name doesn't come that way as far as I can remember. I'll just try for the heck of it. Maybe because of the special character round brackets. I'll just try it, okay? I want to try something. There are two words. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm just trying something. Do they come on different rows? These are small things. Yeah, when there is a blank, it comes. That's not good. That's not good. It's as soon as I put a space, it puts it on a different. Notice how it's kind of said donut type. What if I just want it in one line? Like it doesn't, like it is not doing it. That it's kind of taking it to a different line. I'm sure there will be a way out. Some trick for sure. I would like to see it as one line. But as soon as I put a blank, okay, let me try something else. Just for the heck of it, okay? Maybe if I put it in double quotes, maybe it's different. I don't know. I'm just trying. Just because it's kind of intriguing me. No, doesn't matter. Single quotes or double quotes don't matter. That's kind of strange. Like if I want it in one line. Anyway, not something that you could.
In the output.
Yeah, but you see how it comes on two different lines.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, I can increase the size. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, but putting this is some. Yeah, I will have to do it. But by on its own, it's kind of coming on, or maybe it's not enough space, and that's why it's coming on a different line. You're right. You're right. He's right, because I don't have enough space for it. That's why it's coming. It's not the blank which is causing it. It's just the space that is causing it. Thank God. It was so odd that why would it go to a different line? Thanks. Right? Okay. So there we have it. Now we know we can do whatever. Does that make sense? So any order you like, any new name for displaying purposes, if you like, displaying purposes only. Okay. Let's go ahead. Okay. Let's look for. Now, the difference between empty strings and null, they're two different things I want to point out. And how do you look for null? What operator do you use? It's a little different. Okay, so let's try this. So those donuts with, so please notice my comments. I'm saying donuts with undefined. The word is undefined, not empty. Customer rating. What I'm saying is where the customer rating is null. Please understand this is different from customer rating is empty. Remember, we have an empty customer rating. I'm using customer rating because we have null in some fields and we have a single quote in some fields. Yes.
I'm getting a warning for that exactly having it's something about truncated when it's referring to.
So field, your size is small and your value is big. It's a warning, but let's pay attention. What it says it is important. So don't go up. Those are the previous on. You start from, you can clean your output window if you like. Yeah, because there. Now, okay, so these warnings are about the drop table command, and you're getting an error. Unknown column name. So donut cost is again normal. What price? Yeah, but it says you have insured.
Well, that's not what I'm referring to.
Let me see. I was affected one morning. The warning is what? Oh, data truncated for phone number. Customer rating at 5. Let us see. Did you put the show me its enumerated data? We added that. Yeah, we added another constant in it, comma. Yeah, that's for you. Yeah, that's okay. As long as you know what the problem is. I had an error actually, so I had to put it. You are getting a warning. Okay, guys, let's come back. Donuts with undefined customer rating. I'm not saying what fields I want to see. So if I don't say what fields I want to see, please give me, oh God, please give me all fields. If no fields are mentioned, then you just give all fields. Don't worry about it. If the fields are mentioned, then you only show the fields that are asked. Otherwise, you will lose marks. That means you don't know how to write the correct select statement. So if no fields are asked, just give a star. Now, what is it saying? It's saying customer rating is undefined. So your customer rating, if that's what you called it, if you haven't, please check. And please notice how you check for null. You say is null. You don't go equal. You go is. You don't use equal. You use is. With null, you use is and not is not. So please make a note for yourself. Use is or is not. I mean, depending upon what you need with null. You cannot use equal. You can if you like, you won't get the right result. So I had one donut whose customer rating was null. If you remember, there was one donut, right? Let's try it. Run it. Last table, there it is. Caramel ring had null customer rating. The empty string is not coming here. There was one with the empty string. Try that. With empty. So there is a difference between empty and, so when I say empty, then your statement is different. Then your answer is different. What is your answer now? You have to say equal to the empty string. So the two different things. And you don't use equal to is null. If you will use it, it will run, but you will get an empty table, and which means your answer is wrong. So you can use equal, but the equal will not give the right result. With null, you always use is and is not. That's the only two things you compare with null. Can you say greater than null? No. Can you say less than null? No. So the only two relational operators that you can use with null is and is not. You do not use any other operator with it. You cannot. It won't give you any results. Now let's see this answer. Right? Let's see this answer now. So save and run. Or if it saves automatically. Do you see the difference? This is showing you jelly failed. And the previous one was showing you caramel ring. They're two different things. In one, the customer rating is null, and in the other, customer rating is blank. They're two different queries. If you want to combine them, you can say with undefined or empty string, you can do that. Nobody stops you. Combine. So let's put the comment again with empty or undefined. Please keep in mind undefined means null. You have to understand what it means. In the questions, I won't say what undefined means. You should know it. Or the customer rating is null. There. You don't use equal to. Try it. Nothing stops you. And null is not in quotes. Do you notice something else? Null is not in quotes. If you put null in quotes, it is looking for the text null. And that's not what it is. We are looking for undefined. So all these things matter. If you don't do it right, you don't get marks for your query. Keep that in mind. It's as simple as that. Let's try this. Okay, so let's try one by one. This should show me 2 records because one is null and one is blank. Let's try this first so that we can compare. So 2 records, 2 answers. There it is. One is null and one is empty. Okay, now instead of is, give an equal to. You'll say that looks right. Nothing is wrong in it. Okay, that looks right. Of course it looks right. Let's try. Answer is wrong. Equal to null is not working. Right? Or if you write is, but you put your null in brackets, which is not making sense at all. Here, you are now considering it to be text. Now null loses its reservedness. It's not reserved word now. You're saying where the rating is null, like the word null, which cannot happen actually because it was an enumerated type or whatever. But this is not checking for null. Keep in mind. Okay? Is the time up? You're all wearing your coats. You're in a hurry, right? I have 3 minutes. Don't take my 3 minutes away. Right? Is null. Make sense? So null has always to be compared with is and is not. Null is a reserved word. You don't have to put null in quotes. If you can't remember it, please write a note for yourself. So null not to be put in quotes. Because otherwise it will become text. Oh. You only have to listen, I have to speak. I know. Let's decide who is more doing more work, speaking or listening. Okay, so for your comment, I'll say undefined / null, but not in an exam. I'll not tell you what undefined is in an exam. You should know that undefined means null. In all languages, null means undefined. So at this point of time, everything is running till date. I don't have any errors, and we were checking our answers as we went on, so all my answers were right? Okay, what else can I tell you? Yes?
Shouldn't it be otherwise? Yes. I don't know if otherwise exists at the judgment.
Sorry, come again?
You said in quotes eitherwise.
Oh, eitherwise. Okay, thank you. Otherwise.
Yes.
Okay, there. Thanks. Okay, right? Shh. Guys, you have 2 more minutes to keep your mouth shut. Okay, so what else we've done? The not equal, you can check yourself. It's not a big deal. Okay, so how do you do not equal? Both will work. Donuts that are not rings, that are not filled, let's say. Okay, so what do we do with donuts that are not filled? Just to show you that not equal, where, what was it, type? Oops, what do I do? Don't I choose the right one? Or do I have, oh, I have to do an enter. I do it like Eclipse. Okay, I do a space bar. Okay, where donut type is not equal to, and we'll say filled. So anything but filled will come up. Okay, and also you can use both of them. Okay, these are both not equal. This is not the not word equal, though that's different. The not operator is different. I know I can do it in 1 minute, so I'll do it next week. Try again. Last 2 answers must be same. Anything but filled and anything but filled. Anything but filled, anything but filled. You can always go right, left like this. You can use your arrows in the bar here. So anything but filled comes up. So both operators are not equal to operators. We haven't completed it, of course, so we'll complete it next week. I want to show you not like and so on, a few, not much. And then we'll be ready for your second in-class assignment next week. So there's an in-class assignment next week, okay? Next week, yes. Right, so I put this on Blackboard so that you have it, and then we'll complete it next week.